The following is a special presentation on TNN, the Nashville Network.
We're back at Brainerd International Raceway. With its long, wide straightaway and scary, fast, sweeping turns. With tight S's, left and right, all of which challenge a driver's skill. That test the metal and the machine. A place that requires nerves of steel and the ability to wait for opportunity to show itself. But Brainerd is a place where the virtue of patience sometimes takes the day off. The 1995 AC-Delco Challenge Series continues at Brainerd International Raceway with a Pontiac Excitement 300. Under clear, sunny skies, a little bit of rain in the forecast, but the Gophers around here tell us we're going to be okay. Hello again, everybody. I'm Brian Drever, along with my good friend, the encyclopedic and erudite Rob Albright, former race car driver. We're ready to have another good time out here today. And at Brainerd International Raceway, kind of the overriding story among the many that we have to tell is that, boy, there are a lot of good cars at the back of the field here today.
There certainly are. First, I want to say congratulations to my daughter, Angela, and brand new son-in-law of less than 48 hours, Brian, as they're celebrating a honeymoon somewhere in the Florida Keys. Now, that having been said, deep in the pack, it's Leighton Reese, Bobby Archer, Brad Loney, and a host of others that are really going to have their work cut out for them in the early going, Brian.
Well, they're going to have their work cut out for them, but they're going to be charging straight to the front with nothing to lose, reckless abandon, heading out to try to get to that checkered flag first. That's going to cause a problem for a lot of the ASA regulars, guys who have the long-term goal in mind. That is the points battle for this season.
And I think of two drivers in particular. Mike Miller, who told us yesterday after getting off course late and costing himself several positions, you got to race the track, not the other drivers. And who can forget last year when Jay Sauter got bumped by Scott Lagacy late in the going and cost him a number of positions in the point standings.
So we'll be watching very carefully the run from the rear. The third member of our broadcast team, Ralph Shaheen, is down on the starting grid, but earlier he talked to a lot of the drivers about this race course.
Every road racing track has a personality section to it, a part of the racetrack that every driver thinks of as soon as you mention the name of the facility, such as the corkscrew at the famed Laguna Seca Raceway in Monterey, California. Here at Brainerd, it's turn one, and the reason why is because of this very fast front straightaway. The drivers will be hitting about 160 miles an hour as they make their way down to the turn. That's where the problems begin for drivers such as pole sitter Kenny Schrader. Kenny, how tough is it entering this turn?
Well, it's just, it's real intimidating. You're running really fast, especially for these cars. No wall, you just see treetops, and you know that if you go off, you're going to go for a long way.
Once you're into the turn, now you have to deal with what is known as the apex, the center of the corner. Fifth place today on the grid is Scott Hansen. How tricky is the middle of the turn?
Well, you know, as you said, you're coming in here so fast that you have to find the middle, the apex, so you can really exit the corner good, because turn two is just as fast.
Now you've got to deal with the exit. Get off the turn as good as you can, and that's where Gary St. Amand, who starts 8th today, will be trying his wares. How tough is the exit?
Well, you know, if you hit your apex right, you know, it's not really that bad getting off, but if you just miss it just by a little bit, you have dirt, you have gravel up there, you get off the track, and all you see is trees.
And the problem with that, folks, is that once you're through with turn one, you're still wide open as you make your way down to turn number two. Now let's go back down to the grid, and my colleague on pit road today, here's Sandy.
Well, the competition is fierce at the front of the grid, but as you work your way down the pack, there is no question this is anyone's race. Mike Eddy, the Pontiac, he is a master of the oval, but he is hungry for a road course victory. Leighton Reese, a famous road racer, twice now, he's come in second. He wants that checkered flag. And Tony Raines, bad luck in qualifying, but a very, very fast car. Tony is one to watch in this race. Tony, a lot of factors in this race, brakes, etc. How do you plan on running it?
Well, we're just going to try and set a nice, easy pace and conserve what we got and hopefully be around at the end.
One thing to keep in mind that this racetrack is longer than the previous 6 put together, and we're going to get this race started in just a few minutes. But, Rob, let's go back to this point situation once again. This is a big deal.
It's a great tussle for second between 2 racing best buddies, Gary St. Amant and Glenn Allen Jr., and then a 4-way battle for 4th. 4 drivers separated by less than 40 points. Scott Hansen, Brian Reffner, Bob Seneker, and Brad Loney.
So the points battle is always tough. And we're going to go right back down to the starting grid now. We promised you that Ralph Shaheen was there. It's his job to get this race started, so here's Ralph.
Thanks, Brian. We're set down here on the grid. Rob Butler, who is the district manager for the Minneapolis zone of Pontiac, is sitting inside this nice air-conditioned Firebird down here. Get us underway, Rob.
Let's get the Excitement 300 rolling. Drivers, start your engines.
Give me a cue to go, though, on that commercial. The cars are running. Well, the engines are running, and the cars will be in just a moment around Brainerd International Raceway. 60 laps of racing coming right up. The AC-Delco Challenge Series on TNN presents the Pontiac Excitement 300. Brought to you in part by Win Oil Company, makers of quality automotive car care products. Remember, when it's wins, it works. By your GM Goodwrench service dealer. We want your business. By Goodyear, #1 in racing, #1 in tires. By Just for Men, the leader in men's hair coloring, blends away gray in 5 minutes. And by Pep Boys Automotive Supercenter. Right. We're back at Brainerd, Minnesota on the 3-mile road course. 10 turns, only 2 lefts. The rest of them, they'll be bending around to the right side. The grid, of course, has taken to the course for a starting lap here. Behind the pace car, the lights will still on, so we won't be racing quite yet. And here is a look at the starting grid.
In the front row, a first career ASA pole position for Ken Schrader from Concord, North Carolina in the AC-Delco Chevrolet. And Bob Seneker, he's been tough all year in qualifying in car number 84, the Johnsonville Foods Lane Automotive Thunderbird.
Jay Sauter with a big motor effort here gets on the inside of row number 2 alongside Dave Sensiba, whose Chevrolet had a great run here, nice and steady during the qualifying race.
In the third row, 2 drivers who are former road race winners in ASA in just 6 previous events. Scott Hansen starts 5th in the AFCO Racing Wisconsin Aviation Ford Thunderbird, and John Cadman from Cayuga, Ontario, Canada will pilot the Luptec Ford from the outside of row 3.
Glenn Allen Jr. with a nice steady effort during the qualifying races, and Gary St. Amant, well, he had a little bit of excitement but still managed to put his Ford Thunderbird on row number 4.
Having a sensational sophomore season thus far is Brian Reffner. He'll start 9th in the Structural Transport Ford Thunderbird. And surprising Doug Mayer, a former go-kart champion, starts 10th in the No-Touch Car Care Products Chevrolet.
Another road race specialist, Jim Durhag of Minnesota in the Gillen JB Car Care Pontiac alongside Mike Miller from Marietta, Georgia in the Funco Land Pontiac in this Pontiac Excitement 300.
Row number 7, Rick Beebe, who is closing in rapidly on J.D. Summers in the rookie battle. And Harold Fair, who had a great run in his qualifier yesterday afternoon, starts beside him.
Dr. Yale Conley alongside rookie contender Eddie Sharp make up row number 8 here at Brainerd International. We're about 1 lap from the start of the race.
Row number 9, Brandon Sperling, another youngster who is gunning for that $50,000 Rookie of the Year prize and a former road racer. And Randy Ruhlman making his first ASA appearance.
In row number 10, Ray Skillman and Jeff Neal alongside one another. Skillman in the only Oldsmobile taking part in today's race.
And in row number 11, another rookie, Ted Smokestad, and racing veteran Dennis Lampman in his Ford.
We start to get into the meat of the ASA regulars here with Joe Knott, Steve Shive, 2 of the guys that have raced every event this year. Rick Miller, Sam Gottwald making his first appearance for 1995.
Row number 14, Kent Stoffer, top 10 in points, and points leader Mike Eddy will start 28th on the field here this afternoon.
And here's the guy, Leighton Reese, that everybody is scared of. Like death and taxes, they know he's coming.
Row 16, Brad Loney had a flat tire in his qualifying race. And Tony Raines, he appeared to be the fastest guy on the racetrack yesterday. He had a rear end problem in his car.
A total of 44 cars in the field. As we work our way towards the back, you will see a lot of ASA regulars here. Tony Roper, Pat Bordeaux. Bordeaux, a rookie contender. Tony Roper starting to turn his luck around. Tom Jones will have an in-car on him today. Bobby Archer, great run for him. Cindy Peterson, the only female driver, and PhD Dr. David Anspall.
Lou Gelati, another road racing veteran who ran as high as 3rd in his qualifying race. Darren Law, a driving instructor at the Bob Bondurant School. Greg Freed and Pete Wallers round out the 22nd and final row.
With a huge and colorful field circling the track here at Brainerd International Raceway, awaiting the drop of the green flag. A lot of interest in what will be going on here today, especially as we mentioned at the top of the show there, Rob, the run from the rear as these guys are going to be coming up from the back, and this is the racetrack they'll be doing it on. 3
miles, 10 turns. It's that turn 1 that everybody's afraid of. 172 miles an hour. Leighton Reese was estimating terminal velocity at the end of that very, very long straightaway. It's a right-hander, as is turn 2 and turn 3. Several drivers have had a lot of problems in turn 3, and with dry conditions here, Brian, a couple of guys set the grass on fire over in that 3rd corner after scooting off the course.
44 cars will start the race, 60 laps, approximately 300 kilometers. Ergo the name, the Pontiac Excitement 300. Leighton Reese holds the track record to nobody's surprise at just over 105 miles an hour in the breakdown by manufacturer. There you see it.
Everybody said that Leighton Reese probably would have had a new track record in qualifying, but he hit the bridge out of turn number 9 and did a lot of damage to his race car.
There we're looking out the front of Leighton Reese's Phillips 66 Trop Arctic machine, and he did indeed have a scary incident. When we come up to the bridge, perhaps we can show you. Here's a look out the front of yet another one of the race cars. A total of 4 in-car cameras here today, I believe. Oh, this is Leighton Reese's car from inside. There we go.
And this is Scott Hansen's overlooking the Alan Kowicki logo on the hood of Scott's car number 53. Of course, Scott has a road race victory to his credit in ASA competition. He'll be carrying a camera for us from the 5th starting spot.
And the Bluebird, Bob Seneker. Of course, the only thing in front of him right now is the pace car as he's on row number 1 and dodged a bullet because in the qualifying race, he really had some problems. Engine trouble took him out, a broken timing chain. And he had to get, he was lucky that he qualified on the front row before the races. Let's go quickly to Ralph Shaheen.
2 cars we wanted to update you on. One is Tony Roper. He dove down pit road. His throttle was hooking up on the carburetor, and that is a problem he's not going to want to have going into turn 2 later on today. The other driver was hoping that things get a lot better as we go back to green. We'll catch up with him in a little bit. We're Green Flag Racing here at Brainerd.
And look at this mass of metal and fiberglass down the straightaway. Look at them fanning out 5, 6 wide, Brian, into turn 1.
Well, up front, of course, Ken Schrader with the inside position into turn number 1, flat out in the throttle. All the drivers have said that on new tires, you don't even have to lift. The first really hard braking turn is turn number 3. So Seneker lines up behind Schrader, then the rest of the field as they head down towards the tighter part of the race course.
Well, they just exited turn number 2. Turn number 3 is a much tighter turn, about 120 degrees. And look at Bob Seneker hard on the binders as Jay Sauter looks to the inside in car number 1.
Sensiba running in the number 4 car and in 4th place. Here we go with Bob Seneker looking up front to Ken Schrader. Schrader just holding even right there, not really pulling away, and certainly Seneker not bringing him back right now.
Well, only the top 2 starters, Schrader and Seneker, Brian, locked into the starting field. Everybody else had to earn their way in with 17-lap qualifying races, and it does not look like Seneker has the early momentum to keep pace with Schrader.
Well, also it could be what we're seeing early is that Schrader, like a lot of the road race guys, really has nothing to lose. He's coming into this race not racing for points, not really looking at the long haul, not really concerned perhaps about keeping his car together over the course of the season, rather just over the course of this race, and he must be confident the way the car is working. Here's Seneker looking back at Jay Sauter. That's the bridge where Leighton Reese actually got the nose of his car down, the tail up, and the underside of the bridge cut the whole tail end off of Leighton Reese's car in practice on Friday.
And look at Jay Sauter again using turn number 2 to try to get underneath Bob Seneker's car number 84, but you're not going to see anybody taking unnecessary chances this early in the race.
Coming onto the straightaway is where Jay Sauter just really amazed everyone with the horsepower that he seemed to have. He appears to have his car geared quite low, or a tall gear, a long-legged gear rather, so that he can get a great run down the straightaway. Now, he didn't really seem to show the same kind of speed that he had in practice and qualifying. A couple of cars going down on pit road, but here Sauter still trails Seneker and Ken Schrader, the number 52 car.
Sadly, Bobby Archer in the 02, who led his qualifier early, has come on pit road, and there he is, the Tony's Pizza Machine, owned and normally driven by Randy Larson. It's Bobby Archer who had to climb out of that car after a second Harold Fair car was pulled from the Rookie of the Year battle, and it looks like it may be terminal. They're going to jack the right side up. And Bobby Archer has to be extremely disappointed. He worked hard to get that car race ready, and he was fast yesterday.
Very hard to get the car race ready. He flatted a tire during qualifying and then came out and broke the header, which was sort of the gun to the head yesterday. And here's 75, Jeff Neal, who has not had what you would call extremely bad luck, but things have been less than steady for this very talented driver in the number 75 car.
I guess you just don't want to be in a yellow race car today. That Pyroil split fire all sitting Pontiac of Jeff Neal. He normally drives a Chevy, has made the switch to Pontiac, and his race may be over early today.
Schrader still leads. Seneker, the number 84. Jay Sauter, number 1, looking for a good run here today. Dave Sensiba, who was very steady, didn't really race anybody in qualifying yesterday, inherited the lead, and just drove a nice steady trip around the racetrack for 17 laps to get into the starting grid.
You know, some of the drivers told us that they felt the Fords had a straightaway advantage, that the weight of the Ford engine placed a little higher in the chassis might work to their detriment in the corners, but with an extremely long straightaway, Bob Seneker is expected to have one of the strongest cars. And look at this. He's now moving alongside Ken Schrader. Here's where it's gut check time as they head into that 170-mile-an-hour turn 1.
Well, it seemed like Schrader kind of had the wide load sign on there for a while, and Seneker and the others were content to stay behind him. But there's a lead change at turn number 1, 3 laps into the race here. And Bob Seneker, the Bluebird, who was the fastest qualifier among the ASA regulars, has now taken the lead away from visiting driver Ken Schrader.
What a move by John Cadman for 3rd position, sliding by Jay Sauter and taking over 3rd spot.
Down on pit road, Ralph Shaheen is caught up with Bobby Archer for the story on the 02 car.
Bobby, I see a pool of fluid underneath the car. What's wrong?
Oh, the transmission broke. You know, we had such high expectations, but, you know, we just did the best we could with the equipment we had.
So Bobby Archer is out of it for today. Gentlemen, the other story we wanted to update you on earlier is Lou Gelati, the number 24 entry. Lou's hoping his race goes better than his morning. His car is currently sitting in the back paddock area. That's his street car. The keys are locked inside, the motor's running, and the air conditioner's on.
Oh, my. I've done that before. I hate to admit it, but don't feel too bad, Lou. Hope his luck is better on the racetrack.
Ralph finds out, hustles around and finds out the little tidbits that elude many of us. Bob Seneker leads Ken Schrader, and now Dave Sensiba. Archer, the story on him, he had replaced the engine. Oh, now look, Sensiba kind of fading there as Hansen goes around. Something may be wrong with Sensiba's car, or he just kind of eased back a little bit, and now Hansen and one more car. That's
Glenn
Brian
Allen's
Reffner.
machine. No, Glenn Allen in car number 15 also makes the pass of Dave Sensiba. We're watching back in the pack as well. Brad Loney, Leighton Reese are moving through the field. Loney has actually picked up more spots in the early going than has Reese, but we'll keep an eye on that battle for you.
Brian Reffner now is the car behind Dave Sensiba, who seems to be having his difficulties. We're looking at the number 70 car of John Cadman, the winner of the very first ever road race held by the American Speed Association. And Cadman has made a pretty bold move towards the front of the race. He didn't start that far back. He was back on the 3rd row. Now he's moved into 2nd place behind Bob Seneker. One of those guys who can afford to go for broke out here on the Brainerd course.
And to our ASA regular race fans, John Cadman's name may not be that familiar. He's raced only one previous time. A former racer up in Canada on the road circuits with a street stock Firebird series that they used to compete with up there. His only other ASA appearance was a victory in our only race at Mosport Park.
So he's batting 1,000 in the American Speed Association. Cadman chasing Bob Seneker as we head to a commercial break, giving you a chance to take a breath. We'll be right back. On board with Scott Hansen, and looks like he might have caught a Minnesota Dragonfly in the middle of the onboard camera lens there. And up front, it is still things as they were before we went to commercial break. Bob Seneker leads over Cadman. Then it is Jay Sauter, and Hansen has now moved into 4th spot. Dave Sensiba is right there. Glenn Allen is there. Here is the leader, Bob Seneker, just coming out of the bridge and heading on to the long straightaway at turn number 9 and then 10.
Great battle for 2nd position between Jay Sauter and John Cadman. Well, we saw Dave Sensiba fading a little bit. Now he seems to be clawing his way back toward the front. Ralph, what's the story?
Rob, it's really nothing to worry about. He is just pacing himself right now. A lot of these drivers figure that it's going to be about 17 to 20 laps before they really know what the car is going to do. It's pretty warm out here today. They want to get a feel for these Goodyear tires on this Brainerd racetrack, and especially down there in turn 1 where Jay Sauter's at right now. They're going to want to take it easy, pace themselves, get a feel for the car, and really go racing hard a little later on.
They're looking at Dave Sensiba and Brian Reffner, the two who battled race after race last season for Rookie of the Year honors. It's Reffner who's had a little better the go of it this season, Brian. He's currently 5th in the points. Sensiba has been fast everywhere, but he's had all kinds of mechanical problems.
Down on pit road, we saw Jeff Neal apparently retire from the race a while ago. We found out that that has in fact happened, and Sandy Hang has caught up with the driver of the 75 car. Sandy?
Well, it's been a tough go here for Jeff Neal. Jeff, what exactly happened to the car?
I believe we broke a rod or something like that. Just real early in the race, it was going down a short chute up there and just let go. It was no fault of the engine company. My dad who builds the engines. It's just one of those rod failures.
Just real quickly, what about the condition of the track and how the cars are starting to handle, knowing that we're getting some cloud cover now?
To the tracks, I mean, what little I was out there was beautiful. I was looking forward to being racing on it because we made some chassis changes and we were set up great.
I'm sorry, Brian. I was just going to say some significant changes up front. You could just see that Jay Sauter has appropriated 2nd position. Scott Hansen has come to 3rd, and John Cadman has been drop kicked back to the 4th spot, directly ahead of Dave Sensiba.
So the ASA regulars have taken over the top 3 spots. Road racing specialist John Cadman moves to 4th. Kent Schrader, visiting from down south, is in 5th place. Then it's Sensiba, Reffner, and the rest of the field way back from those guys. Glenn Allen Jr. at the tail end of that front 7, and then you can see the long, large gap back to the next car, which is the 11 machine of Doug Mayer out of Franklin, Wisconsin, another road race guy driving the no-touch car care product Chevrolet. The Mike Miller, the number 18 car, sits 2nd in that group, racing for 8th. And there you can see the real pack on the racetrack is from 8th place on towards the rear.
Leighton Reese has now moved to 17th. Brad Loney to 22nd. In 26th spot is Tony Raines, and in 27th is Mike Eddy. And those are drivers that we expected to see move up rather early. And our leader is off course.
Oh, Bob Seneker does a little bit of agricultural modification there and looks to get back out on the racetrack. At least it's dry, and all he's going to do is kick up some dust. And as you said before, though,
Brian, I think he's done. Look at the smoke, and I think there's flames actually. Now, what's happened, the area is extremely dry, and the drivers were told not to leave their cars immediately. We saw several cars setting the grass on fire yesterday. I thought maybe that was the only problem for Seneca, but the helmet has come off, and it looks like the race leader and 2nd fast qualifier in the Johnsonville Lane Automotive machine is done for the day, and what a major disappointment.
Well, Seneca qualified so fast in that car that he put himself on the front row. Then he went out into the qualifying race and had an engine problem. A timing chain, timing belt, timing chain, whatever you want to call it, came loose, and he had to replace an engine yesterday afternoon. He was confident of that engine working well for him here today, but obviously something has gone amiss. We're not sure if it's the engine itself or some part feeding that engine. There's Seneca trying to put the fire out with some of the Minnesota dirt as a little bit of a grass fire is developing behind him. That was a problem yesterday. Loney set the place on fire when he went off-road.
That brings out a full course caution, and you can see that Seneca continues to work. We've got a lot of track workers here, but with a 3-mile facility, you can go off course in the wrong place. It's going to take them a minute or so to get to you.
The race leader, Bob Seneca, off the track, trying to put a fire out on his car. The race course crew is on their way to him. We are on our way to a commercial break, and we will be right back with more of the Pontiac Excitement 300. The crisis for Bob Seneca has apparently passed. He is now more concerned with relaxing and trying to get his thoughts together, perhaps, on just exactly what happened to the number 84 machine. A brand new engine put in that car, as we mentioned yesterday afternoon following the qualifying race. There you can see the track crew kind of going over things with him. We are under full course caution on the racetrack, and well, exactly what happened to Bob Seneca's car is still a course of conjecture, but here is where it happened. It was out of turn 3 and going into turn 4, one of the 2 left-hand corners on the racetrack. And let's take a look.
Well, here you can see coming out of turn number 3. It looks like a lot of blue smoke for Seneca. I think that's flame underneath the car as we watch. He's just fighting to keep it under control. He's got, obviously, oil under his rear tires. And, Ralph, you're with his crew chief. What's the word?
Well, Dan Crawford is down here talking to Jeff Brown from ASA, trying to figure out what they're going to do with the car. Did he radio in anything to you before he pulled off?
He radioed real quick. He said, "I smell smoke." Then 2 seconds later, he said, "I'm pulling up the track. I'm on fire." That's all I know.
Any idea why he didn't go for a fire extinguisher that does not exactly get into the driver's or into the engine compartment? Is that it?
It just goes into the driver's compartment. That's an option to put in the engine compartment. We don't have it.
So for those of you that were wondering if he says he'll have it next time, for those of you wondering why Bob didn't just reach in and grab one, they do have a fire system in the car, but when it is deployed, it protects, in Bob's car at least, the driver's compartment more than it does just the engine bay like you might see in some other forms. But apparently now, according to Dan Crawford, they'll have that by the next race at Cedar Rapids.
Well, you can tell, Dan, that the track crew is there with a wrecker. It appears as though they are at least going to move Bob Seneker's car. Whether they move it all the way back to the pits and whether Dan and the crew will be able to do anything with it remains to be seen. But we are under a full course caution. Once again, looking out the front of Bob Seneker's car, but it is not traveling under its own power. The top 10 right now after 10 laps will be back. Hey, buddy, you want to get that piece of junk out of the way? I'm flashing my lights. I'm blowing the horn. Actually, this is the wrecker pushing the car of Bob Seneker. Of course, our in-car cameras are still working and giving us a very unusual view, and there is what's going on.
Yeah, just a minute ago. Well, there goes a hat off of one of the wrecker workers, but the guy driving was leaning out trying to say something to Bob Seneker, and it almost appeared as if he was saying, "Learn to drive, you airhead!" Well, this is not the way Bob Seneker wanted his day to end. He won earlier this season at Jennerstown, has only 3 top 5 finishes, a 4th at Toledo and a 5th at I-70 in Kansas City. Nonetheless, he was 6th in points after having a good run last weekend at Grand Rapids. But, well, a guy in quest of a second championship, this really dashes the hopes.
Well, a full course caution still under effect, of course, as they head down towards turn number 10. One more turn, and they'll be able to at least get that car back to the paddock or at least the pit area. Now, Tony Raines has been a story all weekend long. Apparently, the story continues. We'll go to Sandy Hang.
Well, the story with Tony Raines is really a story of modern technology because things change here in the pits. When we're watching on an oval, the crew can see what's going on with Tony. But when we are on a road course, they rely on the TV, the satellite antenna, to watch what's going on. So they're watching TNN right now as we speak, relying on us for information because they can't see their driver. So this is one of the ways that the crew can tell what's going on. And you can see him right here, huddled under the tent, watching TNN. And want to throw out a little another piece of information. We've been feeling a few small drops of rain, so we'll be watching that one down here too for you in the pits.
Well, and the drivers thought they were going back to green as the pace car had exited the race course, but there's Roger Slack in the flag stand. You can see him waving rather violently that yellow flag, so we'll remain under caution. Chronicling the progress of those drivers that we talked about at the outset of the show. Leighton Reese has now come on strong. He's moved to 13th position, and then 3 drivers running nose to tail. Tony Raines has passed 10 cars. He's now 22nd. Brad Loney rides 23rd, and Mike Eddy right behind him at 24th.
Well, the caution at least gave some of the drivers a chance to communicate with their pit crews. A couple of drivers went in. We saw Ray Skillman go in, and we also saw, let's see, who else was that went in there a minute ago? Anyway, a couple of the cars went in. We're not sure why. They may have had a small problem. Here's Dr. David Anspaugh, who's missed his graduation yesterday. He was awarded a PhD in education and leadership, and of course we know that David Anspaugh is a middle school principal in Sturgis and races, of course, here with the American Speed Association. Talked to David before the race, and he said, you know, I am faster by at least a half a second at every racetrack we've been to this year, but the bar just keeps getting raised higher and higher, and he says, I still have trouble getting into the races and so on. Of course, David running a very part-time kind of operation there, but a nicer guy you'll never meet.
Yeah, you really don't know how good he might be able to be. At his home racetrack up in northern Indiana, he's won several track championships, but when you come to the ASA, you're racing against the best short track drivers in the nation, most of whom are very well financed. And this team has scrimped and scraped just to make it to the races, and in fact has gotten some equipment from last year's car of Dr. Yale Conley. Well, Bob Seneker has finally made it on pit road, and Ralph is there.
Well, Bob Seneker's made it back to the pit lane. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm all right. Kind of burned up the interior there a little bit. Must have broken oil line loose or something and started a fire under the dash. I had flames coming through the dash, and it looked kind of spooky there for a while. I had a little trouble getting the fire equipment there, too. I had to put it out myself with the sand. I had to throw sand on the fire to get it out. But I think the car's all right. I don't think we can run again. All the wires are burned up. It's going to be kind of tough.
Bob Seneker's day is done, and the interior of the car is singed up pretty good around the steering wheel area, on the dashboard area where what Bob was looking at. It's all singed. The paint is bubbled up, melted away, and Bob's gonna have a little bit of work on the interior of the Bluebird as well as the engine bay area as the crew is in there now taking a look at things and trying to figure out what the problem was.
Ralph taking a peek in the passenger side window there, and if I had to guess, Rob, and correct me if I'm wrong, you know, with replacing an engine yesterday, sometimes it's one of those little things that doesn't get quite tightened up or something. Naturally, when you disconnect all the lines that go to the engine, the oil lines, the electrical parts, and so on, you put a new engine in. Well, the engine itself is fine, but maybe something didn't get quite snugged up and connected. We're getting ready to go back green here, of course. The new leader is Jay Sauter in the one car, runner number 1. Then it's Scott Hansen. Then it is John Cadman and Ken Schrader, the pole sitter and early race leader, running 4th right now.
Jay Sauter, a great story leading this race in the Welsh company's Pontiac. That's a big commercial building contractor up in Wisconsin. They really don't have anything to sell or market nationally. They just love auto racing. And we have a number of companies sponsoring teams in ASA that are not recognizable to the average race fan, but people who just are involved for the love of the sport. And they're looking at a full campaign in 1995, running most of the races, but not all this year.
They've been very impressed so far, mentioning how professional the American Speed Association has been and how good it has been to them when they were visiting here. And we certainly hope to see them on board for quite a while. We're on board right now with Leighton Reese in the 06 car. That, of course,
he's closing in on the top 10, Brian. I think that's the 11th place car of car number 11. Doug Mayer directly in his gun sights as Leighton Reese in that Hotchkiss Pontiac, formerly drove a Chevrolet, is on the prowl. One of the things that we talked about before the race is that Leighton has finished as the bridesmaid 4 times in ASA road races and has seemed to somehow manage to take himself out late in the going. I think he's learned his lesson, and if 06 is running at the checkered flag, my bet is that he's going to be the guy that they're all going to be following to the checker.
Well, he's also has a problem, though, because, you know, you run that hard to the front. Tires, as many people have said, you can wear your tires out in a pretty big hurry. Coming from 30th, and we showed him most recently in 13th place. So Leighton Reese, like I said, is coming, and everybody knows it. Down on pit road, Sandy Hang has another look at pit strategy here for the Pontiac Excitement 300. Sandy?
Well, one of the things the crews are starting to talk about is where are they going to plan that pit stop? It's crucial. Some say the most important thing is going to be fuel, others say tires. And another one is appearing to be attrition. Fuel, if they time it just right, they may only have to make 1 pit stop, but that is if they can time it right at the middle of the race. If not, they're going to have to come in that second time for a splash of fuel. And tires, well, tires are a story here because there's a lot of debris. If they get off the track, cutting tires could be a problem.
The tires are a very interesting story this weekend. Apparently there were not an overabundance of tires available to the Goodyear people for this particular racing weekend, and I understand each team was allotted only 14 tires for the entire racing weekend. Now, the track in and of itself, being an old asphalt surface, Brian, is not that hard on racing rubber. However, when you do things like Dave Sensiba just did and you scoot off course, not only does that give you an opportunity to pick up debris, it kicks debris back up on the racetrack, and usually it's a sharp pebble or stone that will cause a cut in a tire. We saw a lot of that in the qualifying races yesterday.
Well, Leighton Reese in your mirror could give you a little cause for concern. Dave Sensiba running off the track briefly there, allowed Mike Miller to slide by. Sensiba losing a position to Leighton Reese as well. So the king of the road, as we have called him in past year, in the past year and in past road races, Leighton Reese making his move towards the front, and well, it just remains to be seen how far and how close he will go.
Glenn Allen Jr. having a pretty good race in car number 15, just outside the top 5. There he is. Right behind him is the red machine of Mike Miller. You can see all of the cars filing past. That's exiting turn number 9 under the bridge, and then down into turn number 10 and back onto that long straightaway as the gap between first and second has narrowed significantly the last lap. That's the 7th and 8th place cars. Greg Freed, by the way, has gone off track. That's the number 80 machine. Greg in the Detroit Wrecker Sales Chevrolet.
Greg Freed trying to reposition himself for a run back onto the racetrack. The caution, of course, tightened the entire field up. We had seen earlier that the first 7 cars had opened a significant gap on the rest of the field starting at 8th place, and now everything is tightened back up a little bit. As we run a few more laps under green, we may once again see things kind of sift out where noticeable gaps begin to appear between cars that are, well, not one car going just quite a bit faster than the one behind it. For the most part, they're nose to tail right now at Brainerd International Raceway, 12 laps into this 60-lap event.
Just watching 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th places. Now moving into 10th place is the best rookie so far today. That's the car number 6 of Rick Beebe. Started in 13th, and the Engine Armour Chevrolet is just about 6 points out of the rookie. And we've had a change for the lead.
Scott Hansen is now taken over from Jay Sauter. Of course, these two, they are stable mates, garaging, I should say, right next to one another back in the paddock area throughout the weekend. And now they're out there on the racetrack. Hansen driving his Ford Thunderbird, and Jay Sauter in the Grand Prix number 1.
What that also is the current Gunderman Motorsports driver, the former Gunderman Motorsports driver, and the former Gunderman Motor. In case it sounds a little redundant, Scott Hansen used to drive car number 53. The last part of last season, he climbed out and ran his own operation for about half the year. Jay Sauter took over the ride, and now at the end of the year, it's right back to Scott Hansen, and Jay tried to put his own deal together with this Welsh company's operation.
So now Scott Hansen, who had started 5th in the race, has taken over the lead. Jay Sauter, who had started 3rd, is running 2nd. Pole sitter Ken Schrader is in 3rd spot. And it looks like Hansen now is the one trying to run away. And the advantage of the Ford Thunderbird with that slightly larger carburetor, the horsepower advantage that it is supposed to have, seems to be coming through here.
But you know, I watched again that time. Jay Sauter seems to be extremely strong coming off lap number, or off of turn number 10. We're going to take a peek at the lead change that we missed just a moment ago as we were looking at something else. I'm not sure where this is. I think
that's 2, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it is, but it's one of the 90-degree right-hand bends.
That's turn 2. Here's the hard braking turn number 3, and it's under late braking that Hansen apparently took the lead away. And there's a quick peek back, of course, to Ken Schrader, who runs 3rd.
And Jay really didn't do much to contest it. Schrader is just patiently sitting back there in 3rd position. He dropped back about the 2nd lap to 4th or 5th, and has just hung tough. He's got a good race going in that AC-Delco Monte Carlo.
There's a good tight look at the number 52 car. Of course, Schrader has made a reputation throughout the racing community for being a guy that'll go anywhere and race anything. And here he is with the American Speed Association. Ralph Shaheen with more on the driver of the number 52 car.
Well, the reason why Schrader loves coming to these ASA road races is it's R&D work for him, not for the car, but for Kenny himself. He needs to get as much road racing experience as he can, as of course he goes and chases points on the NASCAR Winston Cup Tour, and they have a pair of road races on their schedule. So Schrader loves the road course races. He'll be with us at Topeka as well, which will be seen live on TNN, getting a little more R&D for Kenny Schrader.
Running 3rd right now, there's John Cadman in 4th just behind him. The 2 leaders, well, the new leader is Scott Hansen, running 2nd. Jay Sauter, the number 1 car. The Pontiac Excitement 300 continues.
And Glenn Allen and Mike Miller have had contact on the racetrack. You could hear from inside Leighton Reese's car as he downshifted rather quickly. Mike Miller was trying to take 6th spot away from Glenn Allen. Allen got into the back of Mike Miller. It looked like Mike had made the pass. The 2 bumped. Miller spins, but he'll rejoin the race. Now he stalls the car right in front of a couple of machines. That's 98 Kent Stauffer and car number 54 Steve Shive. So a real disappointment for Mike Miller, who said he was not going to race other drivers, raced the racetrack. Actually, it looked like he had almost cleared Glenn Allen when Allen got into the right rear corner.
Well, there's probably a little bit more to say about that, and then perhaps we'll get another look at it. But that was my impression as we were just getting set up to go to a commercial break. Of course, we have stayed with you now. Mike Miller stays out on the racetrack, and he lost a lot of ground that he had made up. He started 12th. He'd worked his way up to 9th. He said he was trying to make a pass for 6th. Well, not anymore. Though this time, we will really take a break from the Pontiac Excitement 300, collect our thoughts, and we'll come back and catch you up in just a moment. Here's a look back out through the front of the 06 car of Leighton Reese. Leighton Reese making a run from the back to the front, started 30th. He's up to 7th. And it was from that vantage point that we saw the incident between Mike Miller and Glenn Allen Jr. Leighton Reese had an incident of his own on Friday, which we did not catch on video, but there's the tail end of his race car that got chopped off by the underside of the bridge at turn number 9. And these folks, whose name is Howe, ironically enough, asked if they could have and keep the rear end, the rear bumper section there of the 06 car. That is the Hotchkiss Performance Phillips 66 Pontiac, of which Howe is also a sponsor. So they've got a great souvenir.
Leighton Reese has now made his way around Glenn Allen Jr. He's up to 6th, and Ralph is with his crew chief.
That would be Lance Barnum. Lance, your car is taking a beating this weekend, and your driver's running it pretty hard right now. How's it holding up, and are you concerned about its lasting here?
Well, actually, it kind of looked a little worse than it actually was. You know, once we got the broken parts off, everything cleaned up fairly well. Mike Giddy helped us out with a few parts. Pretty much everybody in the ASA series helped out, and we got her back together. It's gonna work well today.
Are you concerned about how hard he's running it right now? Is he driving too hard?
Actually, we're gonna kind of ease him back a little bit. The race is pretty long. We're gonna have a lot of racing to do. And actually, the last 10 laps is probably where it'll pick up.
That's the one thing Leighton Reese has had problems with, gentlemen, in the last few races he's run with us on the road courses. He drives so hard that sometimes he drives himself right out of contention.
Oh, Ralph, a long way from the action. He was very matter-of-fact, didn't realize that we had had a pass for the lead once again, as Jay Sutter has reappropriated it from Scott Hansen, and these two guys are having a ball.
I think if we went back and looked at that again, it was almost as though Hansen just sort of moved over and let Jay go on out in front. Maybe he feels like Sauter wants to run harder than Scott Hansen wants to run himself, so he's just going to let Sauter set the pace. The two of them have pretty seriously outdistanced Ken Schrader. You can see that there's quite a bit of distance. And of course, we ask and we shall receive. Another look at the pass for the lead. There's Schrader running in third spot.
And there's Ken Schrader third. There's a battle for fourth between John Cadman and car number 5. And that, of course, is Brian Refner. And Refner has really been coming on as he's learning the ropes of road racing in just his second season of ASA competition, really acquitting himself admirably in the early going today. Speaking of which, Brian, we've reached lap number 17. That's what, 17, 34, 51 miles. These cars at these kinds of speeds can make about 85, 90 miles on a load of fuel. So I think when we see our next caution, whenever that might be, all the leaders should be on pit road. Most of the drivers felt it would be a two-stop race today.
We should mention that the competition yellow is in effect, as it always is, the American Speed Association. 20 continuous laps under green will result in a yellow flag, where the field will have an opportunity to pit and bunch up a little bit. There look to be the remains of the little fire set by Bob Seneker. We have an off-course excursion there. It looked like the 80 car freed again, taking another little look into the grass. Here's that battle for 4th and 5th place, and it looks like Cadman is the one that's just a little wilder up front there, having a little wiggle on under braking, and Refner just kind of driving around behind him, taking a look and making sure things are okay.
Really did look that way. It looks like John Cadman is really working hard to keep number 70 pointed in the right direction. And when you've got a car that you're either driving that hard or is handling that poorly, you are going to wear out tires. And that's what we'll keep an eye on with Cadman, somehow managing to hold on to 4th position after running as high as 2nd in the early going of this race. And Cadman is falling off. Now you can see I thought he was coming on pit road, but one driver did, and that was Scott Hansen in car number 53, as he has stopped under green, and that is not a good sign.
Maybe he knows something that we don't. Maybe he feels like a caution is going to come out. Here's Tony Roper off the racetrack there in a number 10 car. We had hoped that his run of bad luck was turning around, and it seemed to be, but here it looks like he's going on. Cindy Peterson, the number 36 car. It looks like she might have tried to follow him off the racetrack, or the two of them. And here is Hansen. Let's go down to Ralph Shaheen, who's with Scott Hansen's crew.
Well, Hansen dove into the pits to change right side and left side tires. They fueled the car up, and he is just about set with the left side tires done. Danny Stillman finishing that left rear. Hansen puts it in gear, and away he goes.
You know, I think, Brian, this is going to work out very, very well for Scott Hansen, because if he's able to now close back around, all the other leaders are going to come on pit road, and it could mean that Scott Hansen has an advantage. Now, if he has to stay behind the pace car, however, this could put him a lap down. Now the officials do let him go back out onto the racetrack. So it may turn out to be a brilliant ploy of strategy, something that I thought was going to be very much to his detriment, has helped him a lot.
Let's go once again to Ralph Shaheen for more on this.
All right, well, the pit stop went pretty well, but it got a little confusing here at the exit of pit road, Danny. What's the story?
They had a stop sign out, and it was supposed to be green at the end of pit lane. We're okay, though.
So you don't lose any position or laps? You're all right?
Yeah, we're still on the lead lap.
All right, Danny Stillman, crew chief for Scott Hansen. Tense moments down there for Scott.
Intense moments for Danny Stillman. You could just hear the tenor of his voice, and the elevation was there, and he was a little bit shook up over that call.
Well, the caution flag has come out, of course, because of Tony Roper being off the course, and the track crew is there working on him. So while we're going to have to really stop and think about this situation with Scott Hansen, and was that a stroke of brilliance or something else? We'll see in a minute. You can add to the list of things that are not good when your race car is parked in the ditch with one of the wheels off the ground. The track crew is all around it, and the wrecker is there. That's not a good thing. And here's what we're talking about and where it happened.
It happened in the kink between turns 7 and 8. Now we're going to catch the tail end of it. There's Tony Roper, and he was running together with another car, sliding off course. That's exiting turn number 8. And then up on the embankment, and he hits the embankment pretty hard. We're not getting confirmation it was a flat right rear tire for Scott Hansen, so we were giving him credit for some brilliant strategy.
We got to give him credit for some brilliant luck.
That's right.
Because he went in and things seem as though they're going to work very much in his favor because everybody's coming into pit road right now. We're going to go down to Ralph Shaheen, who's in the pit of Jay Sauter, the race leader.
Jay's got a long trek down pit road. He's all the way down at the exit of pit road. He brings his Pontiac Grand Prix to a stop. Mike Chaffee leads his crew around to the right-hand side of the car. Ken Trader pits just in front of him. Jay sits patiently behind the wheel. Most of the drivers were going to be real anxious to have their crews get a look at these tires. We had said there was going to be 17 to 20 laps before they'd have a real idea of what the tires in the car were doing. We'll have a chance after they get the left sides on as well to take a look at some of these tires and see what they look like. Dave Sensiba's crew swings around to the right side of his car. Sauter's crew has the left side up. They're just about done with this tire stop. They will send Dave Sensiba back out and Jay Sauter as well.
Looks like a rather lengthy stop for Jay Sauter. We did notice Bob Seneker is back in the race, and I noticed that the 06 car of Leighton Reese stayed on the racetrack. And, you know, I wonder about that. Look at this very narrow pit road as the feeding frenzy is now concluded and everybody wanting to get back into the heat of battle. Look at all the tires that have rolled across the racetrack or across pit road and into the grassy area.
It'd be a good time to mention that some of the drivers and crews chose to pit. And here's Mike Miller's crew. They chose to pit, even though they had qualified fairly well, back on the beginning of pit road. Sandy Hang is there, and she's probably going to tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, there are pieces parts all over. If you can look over here into the grass, Mike Miller's crew lost a couple of tires. Lug nuts are flying. This looks like it's a wide pit lane, but it's really not. There's not much room to maneuver here. The crews have to be very careful when they're making these tire changes, and they are making 4 tire changes. It means a lot of running in and out, and you can see what's happened down here on pit road.
Thanks, Sandy, the only female pit reporter in stock car racing, doing a great job for us for the 2nd week in a row. It appears as though the madhouse has settled down just a little bit. A new leader, and the leader is, guess who? Leighton Reese, the king of the road. Started 30th, and through a series of pit stops and his own good fortune, he is back at the front. The AC-Delco Challenge Series, the premier short track racing series in the country, has joined forces with Short Track Racing Magazine, the premier publication geared to short track racing fans. For subscription information, call 1-800-468-7876, Short Track Racing Magazine.
I'd like to say hello to some folks not with us this weekend, a bit under the weather. Dorothea Bradley, the mother of crew chief Chris Bradley of Joe Knott's automobile. Terry Allen, the mom of Glenn Allen, who is now home from the hospital and continues to recuperate. John Steele, who's one of the crewmen for Leighton Reese, the race leader who you're riding with right now. John Steele, just 31 years of age, and had a brain aneurysm and surgery just the other night, and he's doing well, we understand, in the hospital. And Joanne Burnett, one of our big ASA fans that's been going through some really tough times lately. And we say to all of you, hey, get well, folks, and get back to the races real soon.
Especially to the man they call the man of steel, John Steele. Of course, he'll need every bit of the constitution that they give, the rest of his crew gives him credit for, and we wish his speedy return.
The amazing thing was, I was told that just before he was wheeled into surgery, he was conscious and said to his wife, well, I guess I blew a head gasket. And I can't imagine you know, having that kind of sense of humor under those kinds of conditions. But John, we do wish you a very speedy recovery, and you'll be in our thoughts and prayers till we see you again.
Well, things have definitely settled down a little bit from the frenetic activity on pit road, and when the cars get back into full view here, and we're able to really kind of assess the situation. There's Tony Roper. They brought his car back around from its position between turn 8 and 9. They've gotten him moving, and now the crew, of course, working on doing what they can to get the Child's Tire machine back into this race.
He also has new sponsorship this weekend from the Willwood Auto Parts people. They manufacture brakes and other parts, and they're looking at a significant sponsorship. Tony is a young man with immense talent. He sure had his share of bad luck this season. 22nd in the points, but that's not a reflection at all, Brian, is how fast he's been at many of our racetracks. Not yet a great road racer, but a very, very tough guy on a half-mile track, particularly a high bank. And you can see among those that came on pit road, several got better stops than others. I think Glenn Allen Jr. and Mike Miller may have had the best stops of all.
Well, and I think the principal reason for that, and I started to touch on it a moment ago, is that some of the teams elected to pit at the entrance to pit road so that they could get in quick, because there's no speed limit on getting out. As long as you don't pass the pace car coming in, you can go pretty much as hard as you want to going out. Let's go down to Ralph Shaheen with just a little bit more.
Brian, we talked about how important tire wear was going to be here today. This is a right rear that came off of Jay Sauter's. There is a lot of junk on here. That's just buildup you get when you come off the car. This is Mike Chaffee, his crew chief. Mike, what do you see? The tires look okay?
Well, it's really hard to see if they look okay. The tire is just covered with junk from running around slow on the racetrack, and this is kind of what we're up against. You just kind of have to go by what we saw in practice, and Welsh Company's Pontiac was getting great tire wear. Tires shouldn't be a problem at all. They just get a little bit greasy after a few laps.
Gentlemen, you can see how much stuff builds up on these tires. Look at how you can just peel this stuff right up off the tire. That's just from the tires being so hot, rolling around at a slow pace here at Brainerd.
And our race leader, Leighton Reese, follows the pace car onto pit road, apparently has experienced a flat tire. And Brian, he's also going to be in need of fuel. You can't pass the pace car. Well, he has no place to go to pass the pace car. And that allows car number 81, Harold Fair. Now Doug Mayer has taken the lead, a driver making his first ever ASA start. Lou Gelati is racing Harold Fair for second position.
Gelati and Mayer, two of the drivers that did not come in. So it's a lot of interesting situations. Here's on board with Scott Hansen, and he's looking up towards the front of the field there. But with Leighton Reese, we knew he would have to come in sooner or later. He has done so, and Ralph is there.
They changed the right side tires. Now they'll come around and get the left sides as well. It looked like it was a right front tire that might have been down. We'll get a look at it. He's motioning at me. He says 2 tires down, it looks like. He's a little frustrated. Tire going over the wall, it is flat, so tough break for Leighton Reese.
And you talk about sportsmanship, you could see some of Ted Smokestad's Super America crew members helping get their tires off the racetrack so it didn't cause a problem for either Leighton or anyone else on course. And what a surprise to see this former go-kart champion and a protege of Alan Kowicki and Scott Hansen, Doug Mayer, leading this race.
Well, he has kind of inherited the lead, and Sandy Hang has more on the situation for number 11.
Well, I'm down here in his pits right now, and let me tell you, they're celebrating. This is part of their strategy. What they want to do is stay out for a while, lead a few laps. They say they don't need to come in until probably about lap 30, so it's a fuel situation for them. And when they need fuel, they'll be coming in, and this was a calculated move on their part.
Well, I'm afraid it's going to be a short-lived lead, as Scott Hansen, who had come in just before the caution was waved, his bullet had passed in car number 53, so it's pupil being taught a lesson by the teacher, Scott Hansen.
And of course, we have to go back to Hansen pitting. We thought it was a brilliant decision to pit. We found out that he had a flat tire, and just because of incredible good luck, Scott Hansen has done his cause no harm whatsoever. After going in and getting 4 fresh tires and getting fully fueled, Scott Hansen goes right back to the front of this race. He is leading a handful of road race experts, and then Ken Schrader. We will be back to the Pontiac Excitement in a moment. On board with the leader of the Pontiac Excitement 300 as he works his way up towards the tail end of the field now. Motorhome facilities for Group 5 sports and the AC-Delco Challenge Series are provided by Winnebago Industries. For more information about Winnebago, call 1-800-643-4892. Winnebago, they've been with us every race for a couple of seasons now.
And they're one of the co-sponsors on Brad Loney's car number 33. Brad was expected to have a great run. Let's take a look at some of the drivers that are high in the point standings. There's the points leader, Mike Eddy, and he's running right now, I think, in 14th position. He was only about 25th or 26th before the caution, so he got a great stop, as did Mike Miller. I think Mike got the best stop of all. Remember the little encounter he had with Glenn Allen? They're not now right together on the racetrack, but before they came on pit road, Mike Miller was about a straightaway behind.
Well, exactly. Glenn Allen had, Mike was racing Glenn for 6th place. Glenn stayed out. Mike went back to about 30th, and now they're right next to each other on the racetrack again.
We just had a change for second position. Jay Sauter has worked his way around Ken Schrader in car number 52. So now that Welsh Company's Pontiac has moved into second. So we've got that brand equity that we've talked about. The Ford leading the race, the Pontiac runs second, and the Chevy of Schrader is third.
Well, that's also a function of where they were when they pitted. Of course, Schrader is at the very head of pit road, and Sauter was a couple of spots behind him. So they went in almost together, and then when they went out, Schrader was in front of Sauter. But Sauter has shown himself to be faster than Kenny, at least willing to go faster than Kenny Schrader, because Sauter had passed. Schrader led early. Sauter had moved in front of him earlier in the race.
We're going to take a peek at Jay Sauter's pass of Ken Schrader. He almost lost it that time. You could see him scooting very high and showing lots of tire smoke in turn 4. And it happened on the straightaway. And we've talked about the superiority of the Fords on the straightaways. For some reason, this one Pontiac of Jay Sauter just seems to really crank it up when he goes down that long stretch.
Apparently, he's got a very, very strong motor in that number 1 car, and strong enough to put just a little more gear on than everybody else has. And so the terminal velocity of Jay Sauter's machine is very high indeed. The first chiropractic metalcraft Pontiac Grand Prix. The leader, however, is Scott Hansen. Hansen shaking his head for the last couple of days on how fast Jay Sauter's car is, and he's going to be looking back. Says, I was looking back at him during one of the practice qualifying races, and you could visibly see him coming down the straightaway. Normally, progress is measured in very small increments like that. He says, I could look in the mirror and tell his car was getting bigger.
Top three all by themselves, but what a battle for fourth through about 15th position. It's Brian Refner, who you just saw moved into fourth position, and Tony Raines, who started very deep, is up to fifth in car number 87. Here comes Mike Eddy to charge early front runner Dave Sensiba's car number 4. And Mike Eddy is looking stronger right now than I've ever seen him on a road course, as he's made his way around both Glenn Allen and Mike Miller.
Mike Eddy driving flawlessly yesterday until going into one of the turns on the backstretch. He lost his brakes, ran off the track. Now Sandy Hang has more on Mike Miller, the driver of the 18 car.
Well, right now I'm with crew chief Carl Hyland. Tell me, what's the story with that elbow and with Glenn Allen Jr.?
Well, Mike had said over the radio that him and Glenn were racing real close, and Glenn would give him the racetrack on the inside. Somehow or another in turn 10, they decided to take the spot back, and it was just one of those racing incidents. We got together a little bit, but no harm.
What's happening with the car right now?
You what?
What's happening with the car right now?
Well, the car seems pretty good right now. Mike's well satisfied. You know, we got set back with that little incident. Went ahead and pitted early, but we're good for the race.
You can see Mike Miller putting a position behind him. That is Ray Skillman in car number 27. And Ray in that DuPont machine had not stopped under this caution flag. And that's really telling its tale, Brian. As we wondered about tire wear, it really does make a difference. As you've seen several of the drivers who elected to stay on the racetrack really getting shuffled back in the field. Well, Ralph's report, of course, indicating the pit crews down there telling us that after a few laps, the tires get greasy. Well, Ray Skillman has been out there on those same tires for quite a few laps, and I would imagine they're lubed up pretty good. There's Harold Fair. He was one of the drivers that stayed on course in car number 81 and was running in second position at one point. Now he's dropped back to around 15th. You could see Brad Loney locking up the brakes in car number 33. Brad is running better right now than he has been. The guy dropping back through the pack very rapidly is Glenn Allen Jr., and he's bringing car number 15 there. You can see him coming down pit road, and it looks like he may have a cut tire. Sandy is on the scene. Sandy, what's the deal?
Well, that's exactly what happened. He cut one of the left tires, but they're going to take this opportunity to change all 4 tires while they're in there. I'm also going to take a splash of gas, as you can see what's going on around, but it is kind of a tough break for Glenn Allen Jr.
And here's the situation that we talked about. Glenn Allen Jr. Had the option to pit just about anywhere he wanted to because he was one of the better qualifiers. He elected to pit at the entrance because he can get to his pit quickly, they can change, and then he can go just about as fast as he wants out through pit road and back out onto the racetrack.
I think that's crew chief Mark Galloway on the left front tire, and they got him out at 27.4 seconds momentarily. It looked like he may have stalled that Eaglewood construction machine, but now he's underway. And you really don't have to worry about going a lap down, making a green flag pit stop here. It takes about 25 seconds for a stop, and it takes about a minute and a half to get around this racetrack.
Try a minute 45, the lap record, a minute 42 and change. Here's the leader, Scott Hansen, on board. Of course, nobody out in front of him. There's the bridge, the underside of which cut the tail end off Leighton Reese's car, and you saw that piece of body work over there with some of the fans on the straightaway, the short straightaway between turns 9 and 10. And here's Hansen, our race leader, driving a very steady and calculated race with a heavy dose of good luck thrown in a little bit earlier. We'll be right back to Brainerd International Raceway in a moment. Yellow flag waving here at Brainerd International Raceway. The reason, we have an agricultural conflagration.
You mean a grass fire?
Why, yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
And there it is.
There it is. And that's kind of an interesting situation with the lack of rain that they've had here in the northern central part of Minnesota. All it takes is a car getting off course, and those hot tailpipes and mufflers underneath the race car, it just sets it off in a heartbeat. What a difference a year makes. You know, a year ago they had been beset by pretty continuous rain here, and we had mosquitoes the size of B-52 swarming around the racetrack. And of course, big swamps to run in. We saw a couple of off-road excursions that resulted in what looked like swamp boat racing. And that is the norm here, but it's been very dry in this part of the country. And so these little brush grass fires have been a problem throughout the weekend, beginning with practice and qualifying on Thursday and Friday. There's Scott Hansen reaching for a little liquid refreshment. We saw his arm go across there. And
They've all bunched up behind the pace car. Of course, this bodes well for the drivers who are behind that very big gap between second and third place. Sandy Hang is now with Howie Ledow, crew chief for Tony Raines, who is definitely on the move in this race.
You know, I talked to Tony before the race started. He was optimistic you have a fast car. I know you were just talking with him on the radio, Howie. How are things going now with the car?
Well, now we're back where we can race. You know, we had a problem yesterday in the qualifying race. We had to start the back of the pack. Now we got to the point where we worked our way back to the front. Car's doing pretty good, so I think we're going to be pretty good. I got to run.
Well, I'll tell you, Sandy and Brian, this is the road racing expert in terms of ASA Chief Mechanics. First ASA road race, John Cadman winner, Howie Ledow turned the wrenches. Second road race, Jimmy Spencer winner, Howie Ledow, crew chief. Scott Hansen won the third race, Howie Ledow turned the wrenches. And Butch Miller somehow got in there. And then the last time out at Topeka last year, Darrell Waltrip won in a Howie Ledow prepared race car. Pretty amazing statistic.
Well, and Howie spent a little bit of time with him yesterday afternoon, because the reason that Tony Raines started so far back in the field is that during the qualifying race, they had the bolts that hold the cover plate on the rear end come loose. And Howie said, 25 years of stock car racing, I've never seen that happen. They were torqued down properly, had done everything just right, a good gasket on there, a good Felpro gasket, I might add. And he was just baffled at why that happened. He spent a lot of time going over those small parts, going over the gears, going over the bearings, doing everything, just getting his head right, and said that he was going to discuss with Tony Raines this morning, and apparently they have, about being very patient for the first half of the race, get themselves in position without tearing up or wearing out the car, and then race for the last half. We're very close to that halfway mark.
And there you saw the running order of the top 15 and some of the names that are familiar and non-familiar. Well, speaking of names, at every race, our Chief Know-It-All brother, Torch, gives us some information about the race drivers, and he kind of outdid himself this week. One of the paragraphs in the information that he gave us says, randomly speaking, you're a real cad man, John Cadman, if you don't have the skillman, to know the lamp man is freeman, kesman, it's the rule man. When it rains on your smokestack, and that's the law, even if it be not sharp, it be fair and sensible. Can anyone tell I've been in the office for 15 hours at this point? When you run out of things to do, every one of those was one of the guys in this racing series.
We got a new know-it-all brother with us this week. Porch is with us here for the Brainerd International Raceway Pontiac Excitement 300, and I asked Porch a while ago to reach over and feel Torch's nose and see if it was warm and dry. Let's go to Ralph Shaheen, who's down in the pit with the number 9 car.
Dennis Lampman is having a great afternoon here, gentlemen. He is one of the best short track racers in the country, is our big gentle giant, but he is certainly not known for his road racing prowess. But here today, he's been running inside the top 10 all day as his crew chief brother Jimmy Lampman goes to work on the left front tire. This car is as much a stock short track stock car as you'll find anywhere on this grid. However, Dennis Lampman is hustling it all the way up into the top 10 and is running strong. And this, even though he stalls it, is the first set of fresh tires he's had all afternoon.
Dennis Lampman, for the last couple of races, was the winner of the Dixiana Hard Charger Award, meaning that he moved the most positions forward in the race from his starting grid spot. So the Gentle Giant's fortunes seem to be coming around, and we wish him continued good fortune. We will be taking another short break, a pause for the cause, and be back to the action in a moment. A look across the broad expanse of the infield area there. A look at the leader, Scott Hansen, and the number 53 machine there. And he's trying to hold off the advances after this bunched up caution of Tony Raines. Now, we talked about Raines and how patient he would be in the early part of the race, putting himself in a position to race for the checkered flag. Well, it looks as though the racing has commenced. Ryan Reffner, who has also driven a very steady first 30 laps, has got a front row seat back there in third spot.
Tony Raines, Brian, is absolutely, as they come under the bridge, you can see Scott Hansen just getting that car a bit sideways, trying to hang on to that top spot. But Raines has been Mr. Smooth all weekend long. Had he not had that rear end plate come loose during his qualifying race, he had made quick work of Ken Schrader, and now looks like he's going to wrest the lead away from Scott Hansen coming onto the straightaway. I guess, though, we'll have to see when we get into turn 1, because only Jay Sauter seems to have been faster than Hansen going down the straightaway. You really get no perception of speed here at all. These cars now are at 150, 160, and as they reached the end of the straight, about 172 miles an hour. And that answered our question as to how strong Tony Raines' car is. Good, but not quite as good as 53 going down the straightaway.
Well, he tried to get to the turn first, didn't quite make it. Brian Reffner looked as though he was going to invest a little bit in the fortunes of Tony Raines as he swung over into the draft of the 87 car and managed to lose a spot there to Mike Miller, who now in the Funco land has moved from 30th to 3rd. He's the one with the front row seat now in this great battle. Looking out the windshield there of Scott Hansen's car. Tony Raines, the new race leader. And did he just wave at him?
And he waved at, I don't know if he was waving at Raines like bye-bye, or if he's waving at Brian Reffner, who now sits right behind him in 3rd position. But Raines is now going to have to make some time through the turns 5, 6, and 7 area. He'll want to pull as far away from Scott Hansen as he can, because Hansen now, coming off turn 10, will tuck into the draft. Yeah, it's Mike Miller who's 3rd. I said Brian Reffner. Miller is 3rd, Brian Reffner 4th, and Bob Seneca back on the track in car number 84, but laps down.
Running in 5th spot. Here's a look out through the windshield. Of course, we saw a lot of that earlier, and every time we look out through one of these roof cams, which are, of course, exposed to the elements up on the roof of the car, it's the Johnsonville sausage machine number 84, you can see a lot of stuff will sort of hit the front there, and you'll be looking through little chunks of tire and other crud, various debris and flotsam. And there's the 54 car, Steve Shive, a little off-road excursion, apparently nothing too serious. And once again, now here we have some damage to the 24 car, that of Gelati, Lou Gelati, one of the road racing guys, the sports car racing guy, a lot of success in the road courses, ran well early in this race, but apparently he's run into some problems.
It's a rent-a-ride. Bruce Lee owns this car, and we've seen Bruce in it a couple of times, and then he's rented it out to a couple of other drivers on occasion. Gelati very strong. He was good yesterday till he had mechanical problems in his qualifying race. And now, with his damaged bodywork, he's going to drop back a number of positions, no doubt.
Well, he's also going to, well, apparently not going to head down pit road there. He just passes right on by. He's got a lot of fiberglass rubbing on the tires there. Apparently, he's just hoping that things will take care of themselves, and maybe some of those pieces, parts, as Sandy Hain calls them, will just come off and not present a problem. Back up front again, of course, looking out from Scott Hansen's number 53 machine, the AFCO Racing Wisconsin Aviation Ford Thunderbird, at the very strong and the very strong car of Tony Raines, and the very steady performance by a man who, by his own admission, says, I don't know a thing about road racing. But I'll tell you what, during practice and qualifying, he was on a rail, riding around. Looked like he was on a warm-up lap while everybody else was skittering all over the place.
There was no question in my mind that since we last ran a road race at Topeka, Kansas, and Tony Raines had been to driving school someplace, but he swears no, that this is just, you know, and it has to be not only the natural talent that he possesses, but the incredible ability of how he let out a set up a car to turn both left and right.
Well, I started to say that I was chatting with Tony this morning, and we said, Tony, well, you really looked good yesterday. He says, hey, when you got a good car, it's like driving to the grocery store. And that's exactly what he said, and what he meant was that if Howie Letow gives me a good race car, heck, anybody can drive the thing around the track like this. I'm not so sure if anybody could, because Tony Raines is a very talented driver, but the combination is certainly working well, and if they keep that 87 machine together for the duration, I think we're looking at the winner of this race.
Jay Sauter is working his way back through the field as we continue to ride with Bob Seneca behind the 4th place car number, or 5th place car number 5 of Brian Reffner. You can see them going through turn number 1, and that's what everybody says to the place, is just hold your breath and hang on and hope the car gets a bite going through turn number 1.
The thing to do is to not lift, not hit the brakes. You just got to grit your teeth, close your eyes, if anything, perhaps, and head on through there. Try to hit the apex just right. There's another one of those little smoldering grass fires off to the left there. The first hard braking turn is turn number 3. Then we're into the S's, and that's what we're looking at right now. Here's one of the only 2 left-hand turns. That's turn number 4. Getting ready to show a black flag to the car of Lou Gelati. So apparently the track officials are not satisfied that Gelati is going to be able to continue around out there. Of course, don't quit until they tell you to. Might be one of the things that you keep in mind out there. Why volunteer to take yourself out of the race? Just let them tell you when to do it. Once again, Hansen looking at Raines. Raines driving a very smooth line around the racetrack, performing extremely well. You'll be able to see from Hansen's point of view here just how smooth Tony Raines is. We'll ponder the question of who's going to win this Pontiac Excitement 300. There's a look at the top 10 right now. We're well into the second half of the race, and we'll be back. Welcome back to Brainerd International Raceway. The two leaders are Tony Raines and Scott Hansen, with Mike Miller in the Tomato 18. Mike Miller off the racetrack. He was third, and just as we spoke, he had gone off the course there. A little bit of problem as he put it over driving the race car in a qualifying race yesterday. It moved up to second, ran off the race course and finished fifth in the qualifier, but he's back in shape now and at fifth spot. I'm still pretty amazed at the performance by the crew of the number 18 car as they went into the pits about 30th a while ago, came out 14th, and then Miller moved to the front, moved to third, I should say, and he's back on the racetrack. He's off again and back on. So he's having a little trouble gathering. He looks like he's got a flat left front. That's the problem right now.
Probably got it in the first off-course excursion.
He's going to try to make his way back to the pit area. He'll have to go in under green, and that'll be a turn of seriously bad luck.
Fortunately for him, Brian, that occurred at turn number 8, so he didn't have maybe more than about 3/4 of a mile to a mile to make it on the pit road. He's gone under the bridge. Now he's coming through turn number 10, and very quickly will come off the racetrack. It's going to be a real race to see if he can beat the leaders back out, as he still has to limp his way at much less than normal speed onto pit road. We understand also that the 06 machine of Leighton Reese has been back in the pits under green.
And he's back out on the racetrack now, but there is the blue tail end of the 06 car. The hood's off. Of course, a couple of days ago, that tail section was off. Let's go to Sandy Hang, who's in the pit for Mike Miller.
Well, as you can see, Mike Miller is taking on 4 tires is what's going to happen. You can see that front left tire is it's goner. But also, this is a critical point because this many laps in, he may not need to come in again for fuel. So he's hoping to do the 4 tires now so that he can stay out.
There's crew chief Carl Hyland working on the left front there as they get the car up in the air.
And it looks like he's got some serious problems with the lug nuts. I don't know if he's stripped the threads on a lug nut or has a bad gun. He's not being able to get those lug nuts off like they should just pop right off of there. There's a problem on that left front corner. And the leaders are, I think, right now coming through turns 9 and 10. So they've got to hustle if they want to get Mike back out and not lose a lap.
They got the wheel on. There you can see the lug nuts that are glued to the wheel. Carl Hyland with the last wheel down, and Mike Miller is out and away, hoping to stay ahead of the leaders. It appears as though he's going to make it without losing a lap. We're just seeing kind of the tail end of the field coming by the start-finish as Mike Miller, who is originally from Minnesota, has a huge contingent of friends and family here. We'd also like to wish send our best to Mike's dad, Wally, who's down in Florida. And it looks as though Mike Miller has gotten back out and will be on the lead lap with 4 new tires and a fresh tank of gas. He won't have to stop again. Ralph Shaheen with more.
Take a look at the front end of this car right here. That's Tony Raines' entry. And the front nose of that Pontiac is one reason why Tony Raines might win this race. See how smooth that car goes through turns 1 and 2? The front end of the Pontiac is probably the most neutral car we have in ASA racing on these very high speed, fast sweeping bends. And as we get deeper into this race, that's going to become very, very important, because if Tony Raines can get through 1 and 2 better than those that are chasing him at the end of this race, he might be able to outdistance himself on that last lap and get the win. So the front end of that Pontiac might come into play here this afternoon.
Californian Brandon Sperling, who was showing as a rookie in the top 10 in the Ultra Custom Wheels Baja Chevrolet, has come on pit road under green as Tony Raines now works his way past Cindy Peterson. There he is, Brandon Sperling, who was in the top 10, and he's had kind of an up and down season. He knew it was going to be tough coming to ASA, and it was fellow rookie, the driver of car number 50, Eddie Sharp, that encouraged young Brandon to come ASA racing this year.
Back to the lead battle there with Scott Hansen pushing Tony Raines very hard. If the Pontiac has an advantage, it isn't much of one. If the Ford has an advantage in horsepower and on the straightaway, it isn't much of one either. These two guys tied together pretty much nose to tail for the last several laps of this race.
Hansen really putting the pressure on in turn 10, hard brakes, and that's where he took the lead the last time, as he really gets into that turn 10 very, very well and has reappropriated that top spot.
That's a very difficult turn, and we've talked a lot about the first turn. The last one is no piece of cake either, because it's banked the correct way going in. As you go into the turn, it's banked just a little bit, and you can really throw it in there. But then once you get to the well into the turn and almost coming out of it where the drag strip starts here at Brainerd International. It not only flattens out, but actually pitches slightly the wrong way. So it changes from a correctly cambered turn to one that will throw you almost into the timing tower. And if you get just a little too wide, you're going to get way wide by that.
And as they sweep through turn number 2, Brian Repner closes in third.
So Scott Hansen retaking the lead from Tony Raines, and we're looking out at a clear racetrack in front of the 53 car. We'll take another break from the action and be right back to Brainerd. Wave to the Hooters girls, everybody. They're here, of course. The Hooters Super Cup is the points fund sponsor for the 1995 AC-Delco Challenge Series in the American Speed Association. Scott Hansen, the leader, looking out through his windshield. And lapped cars, or cars perhaps about to be lapped, are the only thing he sees out in front of him right now. As Scott Hansen appropriated the lead from Tony Raines. Raines settling in behind, but we'll have to see if he makes another run at him here coming down the straightaway.
Tony made a great move coming through turn number 10.
This is a drag strip. Look at this.
It's almost like he learned from Hansen as he used the same late braking move to get to the inside of Scott. Now they close up on Dave Anspaugh's car number 37. Anspaugh will stay very high on the racetrack, and Hansen will somehow hang on. He just has that end of straightaway speed that he needs to keep Tony Raines at bay. And car number 5, Brian Repner almost got by Raines as they went on to turn 1.
So the race for the lead continues to be fascinating because, well, there are so many different automobiles involved, so many different kinds of drivers. And one of the things that immediately comes to mind, even as we look here at Bob Seneker, who at 5 laps down is definitely making his presence known. He's out there racing with these guys. That what we have are all ASA regulars, many of whom would appear to have a distinct disadvantage on a road course like this. I don't think ASA regulars have a disadvantage on any race course myself.
I don't either anymore. John Freeman was off course in turn number 10, now brings car number 16 back up to speed, heading down the straightaway, as his teammate Rick Beebe, the cars, both of which are owned by John Freeman, have had a good day today. Rick Beebe shown in 6th position as a rookie, and very impressive run for a guy who's never been on a road course before.
Well, Rick Beebe missed the very first race of the season when he failed to qualify due to a cut tire, and we've elaborated on that a little bit, talking about how it might have been a $50,000 tire because of the $50,000 prize for the Pat Shower Memorial Rookie of the Year. But ever since that very first race that Rick Beebe missed, he has been very steady, and as of the last race, took over the rookie points lead. Scott Hansen, our race leader, whoa, gets a little bit weird there, going to the inside. And we had asked him earlier, before the start of this race, whether going to driving school, particularly the Bondurant driving school for road racing, had helped him in preparation for the Pontiac Excitement 300. Off the track here as the leaders approach this turn, and Gary St. Amant also having some trouble at the same spot that we saw Hansen get wiggly there. That's that very difficult turn number 10, and apparently it's beginning to take its toll as the tires grease up a little bit here. Guys are bringing it around the inside on 10 with that little bit of banking, and then as it flattens out, they're actually having some handling problems on what is a pretty fast turn at about 90 miles an hour. Apparently they're able to take that corner. That contrasts pretty sharply to the high speed at the other end of the straightaway, but it's given them some trouble here.
You could also see that Gary St. Amant back on course has fallen out of the top 10 as a result of that spin, and Bill Baird now comes right in behind him in car number 26. Baird, still relatively a neophyte in ASA racing, has just put a pass on Mike Eddy. There's the 88 of Mike Eddy, and all of a sudden that points leader is backpedaling. And John Freeman has been able to get car number 16, that Chevy Monte Carlo, back on the racetrack. The Engine Armor car has both right side tires down, it appeared to me.
Take a look at the spin by Gary St. Amant. Here's Yale Conley, Pat Bordeaux, some of the guys running sort of in the middle of the pack. And at turn number 10, that we have just talked about, a little bit better than a right-hander. Here's where Gary St. Amant ran into some trouble.
He was closing in behind Jim Derhaag in the car number 2, and car number 9, Dennis Lampman. And you know, it looked to me like it was a braking problem of some sort, whether or not he locked up the brakes or he's got an improper brake bias where there's maybe too much rear brake or too much front brake. There has to be a fine balance there between the front and rear braking.
This is what we saw, of course, when we came to that shot at first, which was him getting all sideways and out of shape coming out of 10. So we saw it earlier. Here's Scott Hansen.
has just given up second place to Brian Refner as car number 5, the structural transport Ford Thunderbird, now begins to set sail for race leader Tony Raines.
Raines out in front, Refner second, Hansen third. Those three have swapped every spot among the top 3 that there is. And once again, they have shuffled.
A few hundred yards ahead of them is the car number 18 of Mike Miller, as Gary St. Amant is bringing car number 7 onto pit road. So he must have some sort of tire problem as he will come into the pit area. There it is, Tony Raines, the race leader, as St. Amant slides down pit road.
Well, we would expect he would have a pretty serious tire problem. Not only did he flat spot him pretty good getting around on the paved part of the racetrack, there he locks it up going into his pit stall again. But getting off in the gravel and the dirt is no picnic either. Ralph's with them.
Well, they're going to work on Gary St. Amant's car, changing right side tires. That must be where the flats are. Jim Durhog is in the pits as well. Jim Daly's crew going to work on that machine. They've been having some radio difficulties with Durhog. St. Amant's crew going to change tires all the way around, it looks like, get him out. They'll get the left sides on as well. Now, one other driver who's having a big problem right now is Mike Eddy. The 88 is down on power. They're not sure whether it's an electrical ignition type situation or if he broke a valve somehow. But he did radio into his crew and told them, I ain't bringing it in till I blow it up.
That's exactly what he did last year, was blow it up. Some of you may remember a rather impressive puff of smoke coming out of the 88 machine a year ago here at Brainerd International. Bill Baird, who had worked himself into the top 10, as you mentioned just a few moments ago, Rob Albright, apparently worked himself right off the racetrack and into a tire barrier.
I'd say at this point in the season, most improved driver would have to be a toss-up between Bill Baird and Joe Nunn. There's Mike Eddy's good wrench Pontiac, car number 88. Some sort of an engine problem is causing him to slide rather quickly back through the field. The only thing Mike Eddy could have hoped for was a caution.
Raines
and
goes around.
Race leader Tony Raines spinning in, it looks like maybe turns 5 and 6, I think is where he is.
He's got the car refired, looking to, puts it in forward gear. That's a little bit of a risky move to come through the dust, dirt, and sand. But he gets the car back out on the racetrack. Didn't seem to lose a lot of positions. In fact, here comes Ken Schrader wheeling around the turn. So Schrader was running well in the among the leaders, and apparently Raines, even though he turned it around, hasn't really lost himself a whole lot of track positions.
It's 4th, 5th, and 6th positions. Tony Raines has dropped all the way to 4th, Schrader 5th, and Rick Beebe closing on Schrader in 6th. Jay Sauter, who's had the fastest car on the racetrack in the last 6 or 7 laps, has come to 3rd and is very definitely closing on both Brian Refner and Scott Hansen. And a new leader.
Brian Refner, former Rookie of the Year contender last year, has now shown himself to be very willing and able to race among the veterans. He and Scott Hansen duel it out as they go under the bridge and head down towards the straightaway. We are winding our way to the end of the 43rd lap of this race. So with 17 laps remaining, things are getting interesting. One of the things that I thought I couldn't help but having just a moment ago, that as we're seeing a lot more little wild sliding around, a caution flag could come out, and that would be a good thing for a few drivers out there. Ralph Shaheen down on pit road's been working real hard. He's very busy, but he's going to take a minute to talk to us again. Ralph?
Scott Hansen's car is very tight right now, gentlemen, so he's having some handling problems with his machine right now. So that's an advantage for Refner. However, there could be a competition yellow at lap 51, which could shake things up.
That would mean they would have about 8 laps under green to run this thing to the finish, or about 25 miles, as Jay Sauter continues to reel in the 2 front runners. Brian Refner, in case you're wondering, on the road courses as a rookie last year, 23rd here at Brainerd and 25th at Topeka. So this run today is a big surprise.
Take another look at the spin by leader Tony Raines that happened over in that hard braking turn number 3, the first real hard braking turn following the long fast run down the straightaway and through 1 and 2. There he goes. Got on the brakes. Refner locked it up, trying to stay away from him. And sliding through there comes Hansen, who didn't really have to get on the brakes too hard. And Tony Raines, well, we saw him sitting there a moment ago.
And you know, I didn't realize that Refner had already gotten by Scott Hansen at that point. You can see Gary St. Amant was right behind them. He had to come in under green, and Gary is now 1 lap down, so he's going to have to try to get around those 2 guys. And there's Bill Baird, who, well, he's got a little extra weight to carry now.
He's picked up a banner apparently there, so he's doing a little advertising. Although, Bill, if you thought about it, you might have wanted to turn it right side out so we could see the writing, if that's what he was trying to do. Bill Baird in the 26 car, as you said, certainly a leader among the Most Improved Driver of the Year. There's Brian Refner, the race leader, about to put a lap on Bill Baird. And Scott Hansen challenging him. Baird going down onto pit road. Gary St. Amant, who has already lost a lap. And we will take another break from the action here at Brainerd International Raceway. The Pontiac Excitement 300 is providing just exactly that, a lot of excitement. Here's a look at the top 10 after 42 laps. Jay Sauter in the first chiropractic metalcraft Pontiac. Welsh Industries has galloped to the front of this race, has passed Brian Refner for the lead, and once again has taken over the front position here in the Brainerd International Raceway Pontiac Excitement 300. And that #1 car has been strong and continues to be strong here in this race.
Well, he really is. After the last restart, he was a full straightaway behind the then leader, Tony Raines.
Yellow flag.
And he reeled him in, and we've got, I think, probably a competition yellow.
No, it's too early for competition yellow. This is something, there's something going on the race course, I believe. Here's a look at the pass for the lead. It happened on the straightaway. Horsepower, horsepower, horsepower has been Jay Sauter's story all weekend long.
And who would have believed that a Pontiac would do it to a Ford on the straightaway? And the Pontiac people who are sponsoring this race have to be thrilled, as the Fords year after year have been very tough here at Brainerd.
We understood that competition yellow, had it been scheduled, would have been at 51. We're at 48 laps into the race right now, so have to admit a little bit of confusion here as just why this yellow flag is out. Big racetrack, 3 miles around, a lot of territory to cover, so we'll try to get to the bottom of it in a moment. But nevertheless, Roger Slack waving the yellow flag, caution coming out here with about 12 laps remaining in this race. So we're going to take a break and gather up the information, and when we come back, we'll share it with you here at Brainerd. Caution flag had waved here at Brainerd, and the reason being automobile-induced immolation.
You mean another grass fire?
Yes, I do. That's exactly what I mean. These guys are over there trying to put it out. It had spread all the way over to the tree line, past the tire barrier there. That's why the caution flag came out. And it'll be interesting to see, Rob Albright, just who comes into the pit road and who does not here with, well, now 11 laps remaining in the race. We see Jay Sauter coming in. We see Brian Refner and Scott Hansen and Tony Raines all coming in. The fire is over there in turn number 3, but all of the leaders heading on to pit road here in the straightaway.
Ken Schrader, John Cadman, Rick Beebe, all staying on the racetrack.
And let's go to Ralph Shaheen in the Jay Sauter pit.
Jay did not necessarily need this pit stop. They were in pretty good shape, but he's going to take advantage of it since everybody else who's running up front is going to pit. He's going to change tires and fuel up just so that he's on an even playing field. The one thing about Jay Sauter is we talked about the front nose of the Pontiac and how strong the Pontiac engine is, but it's also who is tuning the Pontiac engine here today. This is a T-Star motor in Jay's car, one of the best, one of the strongest, and he is really strutting his stuff here today. Let's go down to Sandy Hang now.
Right now you can see Tony Raines is just pulling out of the pits. A very, very smooth stop for Tony Raines' crew. He took on 4 tires, a splash of gas. They're hoping that will be enough gas to get them through the rest of the race. Just before he pulled out, I was talking to Howie Leto, the crew chief, about that little misstep. He says it was only a misstep. There is nothing wrong with the car. Tony says the car is running beautifully, so Tony is still in the hunt today.
Looked like Scott Hansen may have gotten the best stop of those that came in, but a number of drivers stayed out on the racetrack.
And Jay Sauter had a big problem there because the air hose had gotten stuck underneath when they let the jack down. It parked the right rear tire right on top of the air hose, and that slowed them down in getting their left side tires changed. So things might have been worse for Jay Sauter, but he's come back out on the racetrack right with the guys he was racing with. At least that's good.
However, he's behind them instead of in front of them.
And the reason was exactly what I just said. They dropped the car right on top of the air hose. That did 2 things. Of course, it caused some confusion, and let's take a look at it here. The real obvious thing that it did was they were an air gun short trying to change the left side. There's the hose. Watch him drop the jack here. Boom, right down on the air hose. Now you'll see one of the crewmen obviously getting ready to leave. Whoops. He left a little something behind, and he knows he's not going to get that air hose out from underneath a 2,500-pound race car, so he's just got to go and deal with it in some other way. That's what slowed him up.
And we can only assume, Brian, that it did not affect the air pressure in that gun. He did get those lug nuts tight, but who knows? It might not be as tight as they need to be.
Well, we're going to take another quick break away from the action here as the cars are slowly circling the track. We'll collect up the information once again from the Know-It-All brothers, Porch and Torch. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Brainerd International Raceway under caution. The caution brought out by a grass fire, one of several that we've had during the race, and quite a few that we've had over the course of the weekend with the very dry conditions here. Roger Slack, the young flagman for the American Speed Association, with the furled green, meaning that sooner or later we will be going back, but here's a look at it.
Bill Baird in car number 26, that Saturn Machine Chevrolet, slides, and he's got to be holding his breath, hoping he doesn't get into anything hard, and he does take a pretty good wrap there in the tire barrier. And
so as he got moving again, he, well, which banner am I going to take? Which one? Let me go. Okay, we'll go for the wins banner, and we'll take that one with us. And Sandy Hang down in on pit road has a little souvenir.
I got to show you what Bill Baird brought in here. Nice little souvenir, wins banner, right on the front, blowing in with the car. Bill Baird's had some trouble. What they're doing is taping up the front. Also, they're concerned about overheating. You can see them working that down there. Very concerned at this point. We'll let you know what happens.
Well, I don't think, Brian, that will end up being the Wins winning move, but he had to at least make the Wins people happy because it got him a little bit of extra exposure today.
Maybe he didn't want to take out the Hooters banner. He wanted to leave that one intact. It was a good choice for Bill, I think. Thinking man's race car driver out there. Bill Baird in the 26 machine having his troubles on pit road right now.
Let me tell you the way they're running. You can see that Gary St. Amand is leading the field, but he's on the tail end of the lead lap, as is Brandon Sperling in car number 51. The new race leader is Kenny Schrader in car number 52. Behind him, it's the 70 of John Cadman. Doug Mayer is back to third in car number 11. Joe Knott is fourth. Glenn Allen Jr. fifth. Harold Fair is sixth. Jim Derhaag runs seventh in car number 2. Eighth is Mike Miller. Ninth is Scott Hansen. 10th is Brian Refner. 11th is Jay Sauter. And 12th is car number 87, Tony Raines. And speaking of Refner, Ralph has an update for us.
Brian definitely needed this pit stop. He was not going to make it all the way on the amount of fuel he had. He was going to have to stop. So the 5 car is back to full strength. Keep an eye on him charging through the field. And Hansen, you might remember, was tight just before that yellow. He wasn't going to be able to challenge Sauter either. His car is set back the way he likes it, so he's back at full strength.
And he did, in fact, get the best pit stop of all those who came in during that most recent caution.
Going back to green now with Gary St. Amand and Brandon Sperling just ahead of leader Kenny Schrader, pole sitter, we might add. Ken Schrader, in the many races that he has contested with the American Speed Association, had never earned a pole position until right here at the Pontiac Excitement 300. He put that number 52 car on the front row, led the race for quite a while, and then began dropping back. He's always been in contention in the AC-Delco Chevrolet, but now he's once again back on the point.
Well, you can see Scott Hansen and Jay Sauter and Tony Raines deep in the pack, really had to suck it up, gut it up, if you will, going through turn number 1 as they make their way through some lap traffic. Kenny Schrader now will really have to hustle because he's on older tires. He needs to get away from these faster cars, which they will be faster with the fresh tires, as quickly as he possibly can. And if I'm not mistaken, that's exactly the strategy that Darrell Waltrip used last year. He stayed out at Topeka when everybody else came in, and it allowed him to win. Schrader's given it all he's got, but he's off course in car number 52, and he is going to give up the lead.
That is not going to be good long-term either for him, because the history has shown here at Brainerd, at least today, that going off the racetrack results in picking up a whole lot of stuff on those real sticky, soft, hot Goodyears. And so when you come back out on the racetrack, maybe a sharp little piece of stuff ends up going through the tire, through the rubber, flattening it, and well, then it's another pit stop.
The new race leader is John Cadman. We're going to ride with Bob Seneker. He is right in front of the leader, John Cadman. You can see all the fluid that has come out of at least one car, and it makes it real tough to see. It's not really dark here. It is very definitely overcast, but you know, that's got to call for some bravery when you're going into a turn at 170 miles an hour and you really can't see out the windshield.
Well, we have to wonder just where all the smudging on Seneker's windshield came from. Was it from another car? Was it from his own car, which had problems earlier in the race? Presumably those problems have been repaired, and Seneker's car itself is not leaking anything. He has just gone around Gary St. Amand rather easily there, but visibility a problem for the driver of the Bluebird. Jay Sauter back in the pits here under green. That is not good.
What a serious disappointment for this Welsh company's Pontiac, as Jay Sauter appeared to be the man to beat. Ralph, what's wrong?
Well, he broke the shifter, Rob. Frustrated crew waiting the arrival. Mike Jaffe sitting here with the rest of the crew as Jay just brings it in, brings it to a stop, somehow breaking the shifter on the number 1.
For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost, etc. It's one of those little things, those little parts that'll get you. Everything, all the big stuff working great, especially the engine and the driver. gear shift now is the problem here. Jay Sauter's car goes up on the jacks. The crew dives underneath. Of course, we saw at Topeka last year a broken shifter was repaired hastily in the pits. They put a pair of vice grips on the stub of the shifter and were able to continue. I don't remember exactly who that was, but obviously these guys aren't going to get it done that easily.
Well, it's a short day, a long day, turning quickly short for Jay Sauter as John Cadman leads in car number 70. And I'm not sure who's in second position. The scoreboard is showing, well, I'm not sure. It's pretty hard to read. We'll have to wait till they come out of turn number 10 and flash by our position. We're at the far end of turn number 10, just at the beginning of the straightaway. And there's the 04 car that apparently has a problem. And an end of the day for Pete Wallers, who was making his first ASA start here today. Turn number 4, it's John Cadman, the leader. Doug Mayer is second. Joe Knott is now third, and Kenny Schrader is fourth on the racetrack. Fifth is car number 53, Scott Hansen.
So a big shuffle in positions there, resulting in a new leader, of course, a moment ago. Jay Sauter off the racetrack. We're looking at some of the ASA regulars, the former leaders, buried a little bit deeper in the field right now. But at this point is the 70 car of John Cadman, winner of the first ever road race in ASA history and the winner of the only other race he even entered. We talked about him batting 1,000 in the American Speed Association. Mike Eddy way off the pace. We heard a story from him earlier saying that he wasn't going to bring it in until he blew it up. And he's still out there, but the car's not moving very fast.
John Cadman, though, leading the race, has not been able to get a lap from Gary St. Amant. Gary had to stop under green while running in about 10th position, and he almost lost a lap. Ralph, what's the problem?
Well, the reason why is, well, maybe the reason why, I guess is the way we should say this, is that John Cadman was very aggressive in yesterday's qualifying races. He took out Bob Seneca, who's just in front of Gary St. Amant, and he also pounded his way past Gary St. Amant. So maybe Gary is saying, hey, paybacks can be a little bit tough when you're up front, you're leading, and you're trying to get through lap traffic. I just happen to be the lap traffic.
Interesting indeed, as John Cadman and Brandon Sperling and Doug Mayer are among the leaders. We'll take another break here. We'll be right back to Brainerd. A pass for the lead by Scott Hansen at the end of the drag strip here at Brainerd International Raceway, and also diving into traffic now. The 53 car of Scott Hansen, the AFCO Racing Wisconsin Aviation Thunderbird, takes away the lead from John Cadman, the road racing specialist, and he made it look pretty easy.
And let's call it hungry for Scott Hansen. He's been smooth and consistent this year, not finished out of the top 10 in a single race, but has not led a lap. Now, with all top 10 finishes, he's been fourth in the point standings as he now gets past maybe Gary St. Amant, who's trying to stay on the tail end of the lead lap, but Scott Hansen will dispatch with him. Cadman has not been able to get around Gary St. Amant for quite some time, and this is exactly what Scott Hansen needs if he's to win his first race.
Whoa.
And St. Amant gets into the back end of car number 53.
Boy, that's hard racing for Gary St. Amant, trying desperately to stay on the lead lap and with the leaders, but eventually, apparently discretion, the better part of valor there, as Gary St. Amant backs out, lets the two leaders go by. But Scott Hansen certainly came out on top of that little foray, because now he's opened up 4 or 5 car lengths on John Cadman, who seems to be pretty literally driving the tires off the number 70 car, trying to stay with him.
And behind these two, Joe Knott has taken third position away from Kenny Schrader. So young Joey Knott, the youngest ASA regular, is really in there. Here's the little tap that Gary St. Amant gives Scott Hansen.
Yeah.
You got to give Hansen all kinds of credit for not going all the way around. And you know, I don't know what he did, but right in the turn to get nailed like that, incredible that he was able to keep that machine pointed straight and not lose the lead.
Well, the car is obviously sticking to the racetrack rather well, and there is Leighton Reese alongside Mike Miller. Leighton Reese, of course, we saw him with the hood off of his race car, and he's now moved himself back up into contention in this race, at least among the leaders now. And Leighton Reese diving around the outside there of Brian Reffner. So the king of the road is running 6th on the racetrack right now.
And I'm not sure whether or not Leighton Reese is on the lead lap or not. I think he is. He was able to make his stops under caution and maintain that position on the lead lap. So the hoodless wonder, Leighton Reese in his Pontiac, now is in the best position to give the folks who sponsor this race a strong finish today.
Of course, let's go to Ralph Shaheen, who's down in the pits with Jay Sauter.
Well, Jay, Mike Jaffe said it was the shifter. Is that true?
Yeah, it appears that a bolt fell out of the shift mechanism. You know,
it's a shame, you know, we had the best car here, obviously. We went from the back to the front 20 laps, and the last pit stop was an insurance stop. You know, fuel maybe had been close, and my tires were used pretty good. We were putting tires on it. Welsh companies came on aboard this weekend. It was a new Howe chassis with a Teasar engine. It was just perfect. I really want to say hi to my wife, Patty, and Nicole and Ashley at home, because I've left them a widow for about the last 2 weeks building this new car, and we're just going to come back and get them next time.
Sounds like the old 50-cent part got him again.
Joe Knott has made his way around Gary St. Amant as well, but Scott Hansen is beginning to open up that little instruction book that says how to check out.
Boy, I guess so. Leighton Reese may have too little time to catch Scott Hansen unless we see another caution flag. There's Scott exiting turn number 10 right in front of our vantage point and shoots back on the straightaway yet another time. Cadman a little sideways off that same turn, as is Leighton Reese, as is Tony Raines. Four-wheel drift.
It's sideways time, boys and girls. This is time to get sideways. Just try to keep it on the racetrack as best you can. That turn is tough out there, and it really does. You could see from that shot, as I was describing before, how that turn, number 10, pitches off the wrong way towards the tower here as it enters the drag strip. And a lot of guys, there's a high pucker factor coming out of 10 there for sure. Late in the race when the tires are going away, it just goes up even higher yet.
That's the battle for second position. 4 cars waging war. It's John Cadman, but he's being reeled in by Leighton Reese. Goes off track, and that allows Brian Refner to pick up a position.
He didn't even lose a spot.
Yeah, he lost one.
Okay, one.
Position to Refner, but that's pretty amazing to come screaming back on the racetrack.
Those Minnesota Gophers are an endangered species out here now, folks.
Well, it looks like the battle before this is over is going to be for second place, unless something really problem occurs for Scott Hansen in car number 53, as he's just, like you say, checked out on everyone else.
Well, we were looking down on the Phillips 66 hood of Leighton Reese. Of course, that's not there. We can see right into the engine bay now. Let's go on board with Scott Hansen once again. And he's deep into that how to check out book right now, because well, there's hardly anybody anywhere near him.
Now all he could do is just ride and think about not making any mistakes. Just be smooth. And as Mike Miller said, don't try to race anybody. He doesn't have to race anybody. Just go around the racetrack. And Mike Eddy somehow has managed to keep car number 88 going. He's now, I think, 3 laps down. But it's been a long time since that car was at full song. And the last couple times by here, I wouldn't have given it, you know, 1 chance in 1,000 to get around another lap.
Again, last year he blew it up very spectacularly. This year, the Goodwrench Pontiac just won't cooperate, apparently, and die on him. He's leaving it alive out there. Sandy Hang now with Chris Bradley down there in the Joe Knott pit.
Hey, Chris, Joe's been steadily moving forward. I know you had some bad luck, cut a couple tires. How's it going right now? How does Joe feel about the car? Can he make a move?
We should be good. We took on 2 tires instead of 4. We had a flat. It put us out of sync, but
he just went off the racetrack, Sandy.
But we were doing good.
Bad timing there.
Pardon me?
Bad timing there.
Joe gets off course. You can see he was battling back. It looked like Refner had the advantage on the high side in turn number 1, and undaunted, Knott gets a banner of his own, just as Bill Baird did a little bit earlier, after giving those track workers, the safety crew, a little bit of a scare. He's back on course, but he'll now be near the tail end of the lead lap. And that was a Pontiac banner, and that's bet on a Ford driver to do that.
Well, that was big of him to take a Pontiac banner with him there for a while. Joe Knott back out on the racetrack, of course, no longer in contention for second place. It appeared as though he had briefly taken over. Here's Scott Hansen now looking out through the windshield of his car, as we have been for quite a while, the dirty windshield, we might add, and he's beginning to work himself back up towards the tail end of some of the lap traffic. Here's a look at the side-by-side racing. Refner and Joe Knott, 2 very talented young drivers going at it, just not room enough for both of them.
And only youngsters would do that at 170 miles an hour in turn 1. Watch this Pontiac banner get wiped out right here. Boom. And look at those safety officials. I don't know about you, but I'm getting out of here. Joe's on the bank, into the tires, spins yet again, and incredibly was able to drive away from that.
And then the track workers, of course, quickly back to their stations there to make sure that Joe Knott was all right. They were running the other way for a while and headed right back and got on duty. Here's Scott Hansen's race car looking out down the long straightaway here, the drag strip at Brainerd International. And Scott Hansen is getting close to the end, about chapter 10 now, and how to check out. And pretty soon it's going to be story over. We're at 58 laps into a 60-lap race.
Well, let's see. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that puts Brian Refner up into second position in car number 5. That would equal his career best. He accomplished that earlier this season at Jennerstown Speedway. despite having great runs last year, he was able to muster no better than a 6th place finish. No, it's still John Cadman directly in front of Refner as they war for 2nd spot.
Scott Hansen has got to have, if we could get a look in his in-car, he's probably got both of his hands with fingers crossed over the steering wheel right now, just hoping and praying that Lady Luck is riding with him in the passenger seat and he can get this number 53 machine to the finish line. The AFCO Racing Wisconsin Aviation Thunderbird looking good right now. Scott Hansen with a big lead. And Ralph Shaheen down in the pit, of course, with the crew. What are those guys up to?
Well, they're just sitting around hanging out waiting. They're saying that Scott is saying nothing to them. He is just doing what he has to do, and that's drive the race car. But Rob, we talked about how Howie Letow had been a crew chief on so many of the winning road racing machines in ASA competition. We should also mention that when he was winning those road races, it was winning them in Jerry Gunderman-owned cars, which is exactly what Scott Hansen is driving.
Excellent point, and no doubt Hansen and company have gone to school on the Letow wrenching.
Well, now there is Leighton Reese, who is in 3rd spot now. Apparently has put a position on Brian Refner. And of course, the number 70 car that we have seen of John Cadman is still running in 2nd spot, but he is definitely in trouble right now. Big trouble in front of the rest of the field. He gathers it back up again, but there were some serious gasp intake of air going on among the guys behind him as Cadman got way out of shape in that very tough turn number 10.
Unbelievable. Hit the styrofoam and almost hit the end of the pit wall and continues on the racetrack. I don't know how in the world he kept that thing off the end of the pit wall.
Now Refner gathered up a piece of something that's covering the front of his car. That could cause an overheating problem for the 5 car. Here is Cadman. Look at this.
Turn number 10, John Cadman in the Lube Tech Ford Thunderbird slides way wide. Now watch him hammer the styrofoam. You can see the bright orange tires that mark the end of pit wall. And watch Brian Refner. He doesn't even flinch. He goes a little left and then just adjusts to the right. He and Tony Raines go right around Cadman. Amazing.
We're hearing from John Cadman's pit that Leighton Reese apparently gave him a little tap, and that's what caused it. We did not see that. All we saw was the result of John Cadman getting out of shape down there in turn number 10, all of which has left Scott Hansen just totally apathetic.
Boy, he hasn't had to worry about a thing. All the action's going on behind him as he's motored past John Freeman, putting another lap on car number 16. And Scott could practically, you know, pedal it home from here in car number 53.
Well, soon enough, he will be crossing the stripe. We hope it, at least he hopes anyway, for the checkered flag. The white flag has long since waved for the leader. And Scott Hansen, as he comes under the bridge and around the final corner, can see the finish line. There's the tower, and straight ahead, about 1/8 of a mile, will be the flag, the checkered one that he has waited to see, and will now see for the first time in the 1995 season. Scott Hansen, in the number 53 Wisconsin Aviation Ford Thunderbird, wins the Pontiac Excitement 300 here at Brainerd International Raceway. A race for 2nd to the checkered flag. It's going to be close.
Well, it was Leighton Reese, and if in fact Leighton helped John Cadman get out of shape, I'm sure we're going to see a little bit of disagreement as Leighton Reese will pull his car into the victory circle. The top 3 finishers will come right directly in front of our vantage point in the scoring tower. Well, unofficially, it's behind Scott Hansen, Leighton Reese, Brian Refner credited with 3rd. 4th will go to Mike Miller in car number 18, then Tony Raines, John Cadman, Ken Schrader, and Glenn Allen Jr.
We'll take a break here because the race is over. Scott Hansen, the winner of the Pontiac Excitement 300 at Brainerd, and a very happy man he will be in a moment. The view from inside the car of Scott Hansen a little different right now. We'd like to ask, how would you like to really be a part of the race team? Well, Racing Electronics, the official communication equipment supplier to the American Speed Association, is giving away a Unit and Bearcat scanner along with a 1-year racer frequency membership on each ASA telecast on TNN. To enter this drawing, send your name and address on a postcard to Racing Electronics, Box GFS 8701 Mallard Creek Road, Charlotte, North Carolina 28262. We've been getting entries from across the country, from Alaska to Florida, from Southern California to Maine, so send your card right away. This week's winner is Michael Rapp from Toledo, Ohio. Congratulations, Michael. Enjoy your scanner from Racing Electronics and enjoy an interview with the winner, Scott Hansen. Here's Ralph.
Well, Scott Hansen, congratulations on a road course victory. That was a pretty hard-fought one for you. What made the difference at the end?
I'll tell you, the pit stop. The guys just did a fantastic job. We had a flat tire early there, and I almost waited 1 lap too long. You know, it rolled right off the rim when we come in, and, you know, it was just one of them deals that they just did a great job. You know, I beat Jay and Tony and them out of the pits, and Jay had a fast car. Boy, he had a fast car, and the pit stop did it all.
You had a close call on a pit stop earlier, too. You didn't know if you should go out or stay in. What was the story there?
Well, they had the stop sign up, and I knew we should have been able to go, you know, because pace car had to wait for the leader, and it should have allowed us to come out, but I didn't want to run that stop sign because I didn't need to be a lap penalty or nothing like that, but it worked out great. That's all I can say.
Gunderman cars have been so good on the road courses. When Howie Leddow was here as a crew chief, and now with Danny Stillman as a crew chief, what is it about a Jerry Gunderman car that's so good on a road course?
The whole team. It ain't Howie, it ain't Dan, it ain't me, it ain't Jerry. It's everybody here. Randy and Danny tire changer, Jimmy tire changing, Lynn, Chico, everybody. It's a team is what it takes.
Well, it was the driver here as well today. Scott Hansen is the winner of the Pontiac Excitement 300 at Brainerd, Minnesota.
Thumbs up for Scott Hansen. Long-awaited and much-deserved victory here at Brainerd International Raceway. We'll be back to talk with more in Victory Circle in a moment.
Hi, I'm Josh Duvall, and this week's question comes from Kayla Retzler of Strongsville, Ohio. She wants to know if all the drivers have spotters or not, so we went to ASA's head official in charge of spotters, Glenn Allen Sr.
Yes, all race teams in ASA have spotters. We have a meeting before the race. They come out, we talk about where they're going to spot, what they're going to do, and if they're having any problems or if they're not spotting right, we correct the problem for them, and that's a nice question for writing in. Thank you very much.
Thank you too, Mr. Allen. If you have a question about racing, send it to me at The Young Racers, P.O. Box 26792, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28221.
The Wynn's winning move for the 1995 Pontiac Excitement 300 is going to go to the crew of the number 53 car. Scott Hansen, of course, made the pass for the lead, but you heard him on pit road giving credit to his crew. There is the Wynn's winning move on the racetrack. But the Wynn's winning move, as voted by the rest of us here, is going to go to Danny Stillman and the crew, the Gunderman crew, for the number 53 AFCO Racing Wisconsin Aviation Ford. And there they are, waving at us. So we're going to wave goodbye for just a few moments, take another cutaway, come back, talk to more of those who made the story here at Brainerd. The 1995 AC-Delco Challenge Series on TNN is brought to you in part by Pontiac and your local Pontiac dealer. We are driving excitement. By Wynn Oil Company, makers of quality automotive car care products. Remember, when it's Wynn's, it works. By your GM Goodwrench service dealer. We want your business. By the more than 1,000 AutoZone stores across America. AutoZone, the best parts in auto parts. And by Pep Boys Automotive Supercenters. In 5 out of 6 road races in the American Speed Association, Leighton Reese has finished second, and that's a pretty impressive record. He's with Sandy Heng down below.
Well, great race for you, Leighton.
Oh boy, that was a dogfight out there. The old Hotchkiss Phillips 66 Pontiac ran flawlessly. You know, the Goodyears really stuck. Boy, it was just a war, I tell you.
Leighton Reese with the second place finish.
Our congratulations to Leighton Reese and also to Brian Reffner, the third place finisher. We want to let you know, two-way communication equipment provided by Racing Electronics. You've been watching live ASA Racing on TNN. For Ralph Shaheen, Rob Albright, and Sandy Heng, I'm out of here.